And welcome back to the Mouthpiece Moment podcast. Recording this episode at the Tillis Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy in La Mirada, California. Is that correct, or is it Whittier?
La Mirada Boulevard, but it's in Whittier.
It's in Whittier, California. Got the owner and head coach Noah Tillis here. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Everyone at this table did lots of drinking last night, and I think that's pretty awesome. One of the other people here, good friend from like elementary school, middle school, Jorge Magallon. How you doing, man?
Doing good, man.
You look great. Every single time I look at you, I'm like, that's a handsome man. That's literally the first thought. Like, you could be on fire, and my first thought would be, that's a handsome man on fire.
Melting away.
And that velvety voice you just heard right there is good friend Kyle Simmons. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back.
It was very interesting watching UFC 278 last night. Kyle came over, and if you haven't, if you don't, at this point, I assume that anyone who's listening has like saw the results. But it was fucking crazy main event. Kamaru Usman, I think, would have finished the fight 4-1 with a unanimous decision. 56 seconds left in the fight. Leon Edwards throws a Hail Mary kick, fucking puts him to sleep, and the whole world goes nuts. And then he just copied a bunch of Conor McGregor fucking movements, and that was awkward. That was fucking cringy.
The gorilla walk.
He did the gorilla walk. He got on the octagon and did the money thing, and I'm like, the thing we were saying was the whole time is Kyle and I were like, dude, act like you've been there. Like, obviously it's a huge deal, but you just copied all of Conor McGregor's moves at the your biggest moment ever, and you're like, I'm gonna do something someone else did. Like,
and then just another thing about it is just like, you were gonna lose the fight. You were going to lose the fight. So to act like you were like in control and dominating the whole time after, just be a little bit more humble and gracious in your victory. That's my thoughts anyway.
And my only thing is like, we have no idea what that feels like. So maybe he's just completely high on fucking everything. Every ounce of his body was on fire, and he's like, this is all I got is to copy Conor McGregor. And what was it that he kept yelling like over and over? He's like, I told you I'd have, or...
Yeah, something like I knew, I was reminded of like Nate Diaz when he choked out McGregor and he said, "I'm not surprised," but yeah, I think he kept on saying something like that, I told you I'd be. I told you I was gonna do it. Nobody thought I was gonna do it. I told you I was gonna do something like that.
He said it like 45 times, and it's like, okay, man, we got it. And then Joe Rogan was just like over and over, just fucking. Show that again. Show that, like, what? And you just feel bad for Kamaru. Like, you just gotta watch that over and over. Oh, I know you guys had a little beach day for Tillis Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu yesterday, right? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, we were down in Huntington Beach, so I didn't get to watch the fights. I just watched all the highlights after. So yeah, same thing. You see, one clip I saw kind of talking about what you were saying. He is in between rounds. I don't know which rounds it was, but he was just getting blasted by his cornerman. He's calling him a wanker and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, come on, what are you doing? So it kind of goes like what you're saying. You were getting smashed, man.
Yeah, his corner yelled at him something along the lines of like, wake the fuck up. You're acting like a bitch bloke or something like that. He said something along the lines of that. It was funny. Like, we were laughing about it because we were already, pretty buzzed at that point. It was like the end of the night, and it's just sort of like, you saw it was a really good card, actually.
The card was really good.
Not that there was a ton of finishes, but it was a good card. So we were, if you're a fight fan, like, you get amped up on good fights and you feel good. And then the main event's there, you're like, this is the last one, and it's a big deal. Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards, they have the history. It was the second fight. Some people, I've become sort of a Kamaru Usman fan just because he's getting it done and he's finishing people and stuff. I used to not like him at all the first like 3 or 4 years he was in the UFC. So I don't root for him, but I respect him a lot more now. It's easier to watch his fights. And then Leon Edwards has kind of got that weird scenario where he fights every 2 years, and then COVID kept him from coming over, and he people were pulling out of fights.
I didn't like him at all.
I've never been a fan of him, but he. And that's the thing, is if he finished people, then it's like, all right, cool, I like him because he's got that sharp striking style that's interesting. But if you're not finishing people, it's kind of like,
he was usually just pointing people out.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. And we were talking a lot about the Diaz fight, about how, like, he was winning that fight easily, and then Nate Diaz, who's not normally known as a power puncher, put him on skates and just let him fucking survive.
Yeah.
And it was really annoying. And now him winning the fight sort of opens the doors for a lot of other matchups with him in the welterweight division. Obviously, Kamaru's going to fight him. I think he's going to get his rematch if he's all right. But after that, if he keeps the belt, there's a lot of interesting fights there. Nate's supposed to leave the UFC, so we'll see how that goes. He's fighting Chimaev, September 10th. And so he says that's his last fight. He's trying to get out of there. He wants to go do boxing. But a lot of people say a lot of shit. So who knows? Who knows what's going on? But the beach day yesterday, that was an interesting thing. We were supposed to go. We ended up bailing because we were like tired in the morning. There was a bunch of other stuff going on. Dom was like not that excited. Dom's kind of, I mean, you've been around Dom for maybe about a month now. He's got really high level like ADHD. So he's hard to read a lot of times. Like he's the kind of kid where it's really hard for him to learn in this scenario where, because what you practice is pretty cool. I'm not really into the whole martial arts world, and I never really grew up in that. But there's a team element where you get out there, you show technique with another adult, and then they break and they go repeat that technique. So they drill it. And Dominic is terrible in that sort of scenario. He needs a lot of like one-on-one attention. So basically what happens is like he'll do his thing here. Luckily you partner up with someone, so the kids are kind of learning together, teaching each other the technique. Then when we go home, I like redo the work with him again because I know he needs like the one-on-one attention, you know. So, so he was just kind of like, I don't really feel like going to the beach. And I'm like, cool. But what about the kids and all that? But I think for him, he was so like, I want to play like Roblox later because he doesn't play like video games that much. So I think he just was like thinking about that. And so we're like, all right, fine, we'll skip this one. But I thought it was a really cool event to set up just because you have adults who fight on the MMA side to train, and there's jiu-jitsu classes, and then there's the kids classes. So it was just a big conglomerate meetup, right? Yeah,
it was pretty cool. And the beach is a hard thing. Like there's a lot of people showed up, but then there was a lot of people from the team that didn't. But you got to think, like, especially if you have kids or you're bringing kids, it's an all day thing. You got to get everybody ready, and we're not far from the beach, but you're still driving 40 minutes to get there, settle and stuff like that. So yeah, that was I didn't even want to go. You know, like you get set. Like I'd rather have just laid around all day. But when you go, it's a good time.
Once you get there, it's one of those things. You're like, the logistics are gonna suck. Yeah. Driving there is gonna suck. But once you get there, it's all right.
Yeah, but you're spot on actually. Yeah, like I have guys that fight MMA. I have older cats that are just hobbyists or that are just training a couple times a week. Some people want to be strong competitors. Some people are just coming in just to learn something. So it's kind of nice that way. And then the funny part was yesterday there was like a football game over at the beach day, and you have kids in the kids class. You have big 270-pound Paul who's like tackling some of the kids. And
What's Paul's last name? Shout out.
Yeah, Paul Leon. And so
shout out Paul.
So they were all training, and everybody gets along well. So that's the good part about the gym, is I've been around jiu-jitsu for 23 years. So like I've always been on the same team, but you see a lot of different teams, and you know you go visit friends and stuff like that. And one of the biggest things that breaks teams up or is really hard is the cliques. So I make it a really valid effort to make sure everybody, and you're not always going to get along with everybody, but you know there's no cliques at our gym, which is nice. You know you talk to people that you may not really hang out with outside of jiu-jitsu. You can talk with people, you can, you know, that all walks of life can meet up, and there's no like, oh, I don't like that guy. Like that's weird, and that's kind of like the toxicity you want out of clubs. It'll kind of bring things down, so everybody gets along well.
I think that's a great thing too, because then people who, you know, learn that kind of thing here can now take that out into the real world and apply that as well. I mean, you know, not judge so harshly sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard that from people. They'll be like, oh, man, I never really would have hung out with that guy before, but he was pretty cool. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like you're saying. You see this guy at a bar, you may not kick it with him, but now it's somebody you never would have hung out with. But there's so many walks of life in jiu-jitsu. You got guys that are blasted all over their face and, you know, really may have been in jail, may have had different pasts, and then you got cops and they're training together every day and hanging out. So it's kind of cool that way. So that's kind of what the beach day was for too, is like just kind of like some team bonding, and I think it went pretty well. I had a couple too many, but it was cool.
It's all right, you just sweat it out here in this hot ass room. It's okay. Yeah, that's what it's for. But that's the whole point of that environment, though, is to mix people together that maybe not even more so that they wouldn't, but it's almost like they're forced to interact with people that kind of might even help them sort of fill in a part of themselves that they wouldn't have otherwise. It's sort of like, hey, you know what? Now that I know this person,
hey, Paul just walked in actually.
Wow. Oh, I was like, what? No one's in here. You walk by, the same guy?
Yeah. Stop in the doorway
and stop by and say what's up. So when did you opened up this academy in 2011?
Yeah. So 2011, right like December of 2011, so almost 2012.
Okay, and like what got you to the point where, because obviously actually let's start over.
Okay.
So you started at like how old? 10 years old, 11 years old? How old were you?
I started at 8.
And what got you get you to want to become a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player? What was the impetus of that?
So I mean, it was really in the infant stages. So it was 1998 when I started jiu-jitsu, and so then it was really uncommon to like anybody to know what jiu-jitsu is. So, and the novelty was really nice. But how I got started, to answer your question, I was doing like most 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. I was doing karate. Right, I was doing karate at the park. There was a community program at Gun Park. Shout out South Whittier. And so we were doing, we were doing
Gun Park.
It's
aptly named.
It's like Adventure.
Yeah, now it's Adventure Park. Now
Yeah.
in 5th grade, I remember they wanted us to change the name. It was crazy, but Gun Street, Gun Park. Come on.
Yeah.
So I grew up on Gun Street, right across the street, and so I started going to karate classes there. And the karate classes were cool, but I have really bad vision, so my eyes are really bad. So the striking I liked the striking, and the first karate class I went to was very, very like soft. Sparring was very soft, very, very minimal contact. And then there was another class that was going on Saturdays. Mr. Bennett would teach that class, and he was welcoming the idea of harder sparring. And I was a very aggressive kid, so I liked that class more. I stopped going to the weekday classes, and I would only train on Saturdays with Mr. Bennett. And the cool part was then he started doing this thing called scrappling, which was like, we were sparring karate, and then we would pull out these yellow and blue gymnastic mats that they had at the gym in the park where we were doing. They would have gymnastic mats. Excuse me. And and then he would teach us very minimal jiu-jitsu, because I think he was like a 2-stripe white belt at the time, so he knew very little jiu-jitsu, but he liked it. And so he would show us after class, and then sparring would be like an MMA fight. So you can strike up top, you can try to take the person down and work some of those key locks and very basic jiu-jitsu that he showed. And then I think it's human nature for people to want to grapple more, wrestle. Throwing punches, for what a science and how great it is, it's not normal for people to like it's not second nature to like, okay, plant your feet, turn your hips, fire from your chin. But I think wrestling is. I think wrestling and grappling in a whole is more like animal instinct. It's more natural for humans.
What a natural fight would kind of turn into is, you get up in tight and grab each other. And
That's what I try to tell people too, like when they first sign up, or, if they're concerned about their child actually, like, well, is this actually going to work? And I try to say, like, 90% of any kind of combat is going to end in a headlock or a body lock, or somebody gets tackled.
It's all about control.
Yeah, imagine like we're growing up. It's not like, okay, jab for jab, and this is it.
Mm-hmm.
Where nobody's, fuck that. Somebody's gonna tackle somebody or take them down, and then if you know nothing on the ground, it's hard. So I just to answer the question, I started really liking the jiu-jitsu portion, and then like I told you guys, it was 1998. So we went and looked in the phone book. Remember the phone book, the big old, and we found Rodrigo Maduro's gym in La Habra. So it was really close to the house, and it being, he was one of the only black belts here. So it was kind of a nice thing, because the other ones were like the Jean-Jacques Machado gym was in maybe Pasadena, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there was other jiu-jitsu black belts throughout LA, but Rodrigo, unbiasedly, I think was the best fit and the best black belt, and he was 6 miles from the house. So I trained with him until about 2001, 2002. He had 2 gyms. He had one in Pacific Beach, San Diego, and then he would try to balance both with minimal instructors to help him, doing San Diego, the one in San Diego, Pacific Beach Fight Club, and then his gym in La Habra. So doing both took a strain on him, so he just stayed in San Diego. And then some of my teammates at the time, John Awano and John Ramirez, they opened up New Breed in Santa Fe Springs. Mm-hmm. So about 2002, I went with them. We were still under Rodrigo, and it was definitely the same lineage and same team, but it was just, now it's a different team name, and it was in a different spot. Rodrigo stayed in San Diego, built his team there, and we were training in Santa Fe Springs now. So
What belt level were you at that point at New Breed?
I was orange.
Okay.
So when we went to I got my orange belt through Rodrigo, and then when I went to New Breed, I was an orange belt, and then orange belt got my black belt with John Ramirez 10 years later.
I have a pretty casual question. How many degrees of black belt can be awarded?
I think it's 5 or 7. No, I think it's 7. Yeah, I don't know. It's you kind of like, I have the chart up here somewhere, but it's kind of, I forget too. People are like, they're like super like gung ho about like, all right, it needs to be 3 years, then 5 years. Like I forget most of the time. Like, and if you don't plan on not training, like it just happens. Like,
Right, right.
So, but that's how I got started in jiu-jitsu. So it's a good thing. My whole basis really was, in my mind, I wanted to be UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. I really liked the fighting aspect of it, along with, I was a jiu-jitsu fighter. I did jiu-jitsu for MMA. That's why styles can be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
I always had this style of like, all right, I need to take this guy down and, ground and pound or get to his back. So it's a lot different than today's sport jiu-jitsu, where you're seeing people butt scoot and go 50-50, or they'll wrap the lapel around their leg and sweep the person and then hold the person. It's just different. Like these guys are world champions, and it's a hard thing to do, but it's not my style of jiu-jitsu. I always, growing up, wanted to do jiu-jitsu for MMA, so the style is different. So I
feel like a lot of kids that are breaking in these days have that kind of mentality, or that kind of focus, is like jiu-jitsu for MMA, or like whatever art that they're practicing for the purpose of MMA.
Yeah. It could be. If you're thinking about MMA, your jiu-jitsu is going to be different. If you're just, I want to get into jiu-jitsu,
right,
and then you start, I want to be competing in jiu-jitsu. Most of it is the sport aspect, which is really soft. It's gotten a lot softer over time. You very rarely, outside of white or blue belt, see people fighting for takedowns, attacking submissions. You don't see it as much. You see a lot of holding. You see a lot of stalling, or guards that I'll try to tell the guys when I'm teaching class. It's hard because you're trying to cater to everybody, but I'll tell people, I'm not going to show you something that puts you in a position to get kicked in the head. Because in reality, even if we're just hobbyists or sport enthusiasts, you're still doing jiu-jitsu as a combat, and you have to be able to be in a position where, if you're trying to advance or you're trying to dominate somebody, you wouldn't do that by going inverted. You're not going to go inverted and let somebody stomp you on the head, right?
Especially if you're doing it for self-defense purposes.
Like, exactly. But I mean, if you went on YouTube right now and looked up jiu-jitsu and you looked up competition, most of what you're seeing is manipulating the cloth to a point where the person can't come up and you win by a sweep, and that's
right.
It's not practical.
Not practical when you're out in a bar and somebody wants to start some shit with you.
I've had friends that are getting jumped and they go to their back and start trying to play spider guard, and they get kicked in the head, and I'm like, come on, man. Learn some takedowns or something.
What do you always say?
I got this.
The tweaker at 7-Eleven?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, George has trained with me. George's whole family's trained with me for years. He's a huge help. He helps me with the kids' class and stuff. So it's kind of nice. I get to bear some of that problem of some of those kids onto George sometimes. But yeah, exactly. I try to use that. Like, if I'm teaching class, I'm like, dude, if you gotta handle some tweaker from 7-Eleven, you're not gonna be doing all that dumb shit. You're gonna control the head, keep your knees tight, in a position that he can't rake your eyes or anything. So it's a little different than some aspects, some sport jiu-jitsu aspects.
So once you got a little bit more interested in fully going MMA, where did you learn your striking, and where did you train your striking?
That was kind of, so at New Breed there was always kickboxing coaches and boxing coaches part of the program. I'd probably say my longest term boxing coach was Roberto Barajas. He was in 1968 Mexico City at the Olympic Games, and he's trained a lot of world champions in boxing. He was a really good coach for me, and probably most of my teen years I boxed with him. I'd go visit other gyms. I had kickboxing coaches and stuff. Probably Roberto was probably the main component of my boxing. While you're doing MMA, you have to know kicks and how to mix your striking in with takedowns and stuff like that. So it's hard because I can't really pinpoint it to anybody other than him. I had multiple kickboxing coaches.
Gotcha.
But he would be probably someone that was my long-term striking coach. I haven't seen him in a while, though, so I hope he's doing well.
And then, like, when you were growing up and everything, you said you wanted to be the champ. But was there, like, somebody in martial arts that was, like, your idol, someone that you looked up to?
Yeah,
I
want to kind of piggyback onto that question because I was curious as well. So, what point in your life did you get into watching UFC?
Oh, okay, that one's easy. So I just remember watching UFCs with my grandpa and my dad. Would watch like the early UFCs and stuff, and you hear that all the time. But yeah, you'd see like old Frank Shamrock fights and stuff.
And
like
at this point, you were already training karate, or
yeah, I was already training karate, or I just started doing karate. So they were really early '96 UFCs and stuff like that. But yeah, and then I actually started pancration in 2002. So that was like the children's version of MMA. Striking, kicking, striking, kneeing, just nothing to the face. So, and you're wearing MMA gloves. I think, did they make us wear shin guards? I don't think we did. I don't remember wearing shin guards. And so that was my introduction to MMA. I did a lot of smokers before camo. A lot of people don't know this though. So now you'll have people who will do camo.
Real quick, just to help you out there, I'm sorry, not you, but to help the listener out. Smokers, we talked about this like a few years ago on the show. Smokers are like underground Muay Thai or kickboxing fights, correct? They're fights that they're not sanctioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they didn't. That's what I'm saying too. Is they didn't sanction anything in California till 2008.
Till camo came.
Yep. So camo, then the Athletic Commission made it legal in 2008. So we were doing. It's now the fighters now have such a good privilege. The California Amateur Mixed Martial Arts Organization holds all the amateur fights, and they got good fighters. They have a good staff. But before, like I'm just like an old salty dog. But before
he's younger than us.
Yeah. Fuck. Before it was like, okay, hey, we're gonna throw a show over at Raw in El Segundo, or at Uma over in La Mirada. We're gonna and it wasn't, people from your team can go and stuff, but it was not super. I mean, like, people knew it was happening, and you'd have these fights, and there was no database that like held your record. That's why like before the commission records can be so screwed up,
It was just basically like, hey, everyone's getting their. It's like a like a live game.
Yeah.
But there's no score being taken. It's sort of like.
I mean, they would do, at least for some of them, they would do winners and losers, obviously, but it's not like
you don't go home with an L or anything. You know, nothing on a record.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah,
exhibition match.
In your mind, you're like, yeah, okay, well, I've won 10 of these amateur fights, but if somebody looked it up, they could hardly find a couple.
No way to back it up.
Yeah. So it gets kind of cool that way, and so that's when I was 18 in 2008. That's when I turned pro because there was really no other option. You did all these smokers as a teenager, did pancration fights, and then I turned 18, so got my professional license.
And I'm sorry, you were doing these smokers before you were 18?
Oh yeah, I remember fighting.
How did your parents feel about that?
My dad was cool. He liked it. It was like he was cockfighting, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. He liked it. He was cool about it. We'd go and. Yeah, I remember fighting grown men when I was 13.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean it was fun, and you get your bell rung, and
right.
I didn't lose. Like I didn't win. I think I was 33-3 as an amateur. So yeah, it was. But there was a lot of them. You could do a couple in a day.
Yeah,
so like, it was fun. I mean, there's times I remember did one at like Santa Ana College or something. I got my ass kicked really bad. I just went up a weight class or something, and the guy was like a college wrestler, and I was like 15. He just beat my ass. That one was pretty good. And then Ulysses Gomez, I had a really good fight with Ulysses Gomez. He went on to fight in UFC at 25, but when I was 16, we were the same weight. So we had a good fight. Went the distance. He won.
I mean, I was also saying because you didn't really answer the first part of the question, which was like in your early years, did you have like a hero or an idol that you kind of like looked up to?
No,
you just wanted to be the champ.
Yeah. Like you don't. I always like for how arrogant. I was a real arrogant asshole.
Hey, me too.
That's
cool.
Yeah. So like you don't.
I just stopped like 6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
I'm still a bit, but you don't idolize your peers. So you have to think like. I try to tell that to the guys that are fighting or like. That are trying to, you're not going to be like, okay, I'm a professional fighter, but that professional fighter is really sick. Like you can appreciate their work, but you're not going to, I didn't idolize them because I knew I was going to be there. You know what I mean? So like I didn't, it was hard. Like there's people that I liked watching, and like, you know, Mark Kerr Smash Machine documentary. I love that.
That's a great documentary.
Yeah, like there was things where I knew I was never going to be 270 pounds and fight Mark Kerr, but I appreciated the way he, even though he was juiced to the gills, his dominance and stuff like that. But I didn't, you know, I remember thinking like I was probably going to fall around lightweight. When I was a teenager, I kind of had an idea that I wasn't going to be a light heavyweight. So I'm thinking about beating BJ Penn and stuff like that. I'm not thinking about like worshiping him, you know?
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah, you don't idolize your peers. That's just how my dad would always tell me too. He's like, you're the best. You're going to be better than these guys. And you're going to do this. And you're the best. And it's kind of a weird thing when you think about it. Like, as a competitor, it's such a different mindset than just like not being a competitor. Like, I was a competitor for so long. I competed every weekend. So this is kind of cool. Like, sometimes I'll be, I'm teaching 5 classes a day. I'm doing privates throughout the day, doing all the back end at the gym. I miss competing for sure, but I have people that ask me all the time, well, coach, why aren't you going to compete? And I don't have the ability to tell everybody. Like, I competed every single weekend for like
20 years. 15.
Yeah, till I was 19, I never went more than a month without competing. So easy 11 years of just competing. Sometimes I would do jiu-jitsu on Saturday, wrestle on Sunday. There was times I did the Copa Pacifica in Huntington Beach in the morning. It was a Saturday. It was a Saturday. I don't know what the fuck day it was. It was a Saturday. Then at night I drive to Lancaster and do United Grappling Organization. Like, this happened all the time. Like, I remember competing with a soft cast because I wanted to compete, and I broke my ankle a month before, you know. So it's hard. Like, and I lost a lot, but I just competed all the time. I took fights that I shouldn't have and stuff like that. But, you know, so now, even though I'm not like an old man, I'm 32, you get stuff like, why aren't you competing? You should be. I'm like, I've done this my whole fucking life, you know?
You want to have a regular life,
Yeah.
or at least kind of not be the competitor, the performer all the time.
Well,
'Cause you fall in a role at
yeah.
some point where you're the performer, where you're like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
You don't feel good unless you're performing.
Yeah.
You don't get
And
the praise, the feeling inside of you that's like, hey, I'm doing a good job because I performed.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because you feel that way, and like you want to. I'm kind of like over even that point of it because I felt like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing if I wasn't competing. So, you know, I got my black belt. I was way out of shape. I was 21. I got my black belt. I wasn't in shape. I was working a lot. I was drinking too much. I wasn't. But the first thing I did, I got my black belt the next week, and I was competing. And I walk around like 175, but I competed like at 195, like way out of my weight class. Like, I just did it because I had to do it. Like, oh, I got promoted. I got to compete. That's what I do.
Show this thing off.
Yeah, and but what I've learned, and a lot of this becomes immaturity. A lot of what I was doing was immaturity because I was a young man and I didn't realize that you have to pick. You know, I think my competition record, a name for myself, could have been a lot better if I prepared better, if I took better fights, if I didn't, you know, party all week and then go compete. And it worked out for me a lot. Actually, I won a lot of fights like that and matches. But also, like, now as a black belt, why I don't compete all the time is not that I don't like competing. I love competing. But I'll catch myself, like I said, teaching all day, running a business. You know, I'm married now. I have to make sure that, you know, just like anybody, you got to make sure your personal affairs and your business affairs are in line.
You got to be a husband too.
Yeah, so. and then I'm gonna go compete with this juiced out Brazilian that fucking, you know, that doesn't run a program, teaches a couple times a week, stuff like that, and is just juiced to the gills. Like, it's really difficult, and I hate losing, right? So I hate losing more than I love winning. So it's like, and you know, like, if you're ill prepared, and it's just kind of like, could I beat this guy if he showed up to open mat and I was feeling good? Probably. But when you're on a stage, you're in Commerce Casino, there's a couple thousand people watching, and I'm losing to a scrub over and over and over, you're starting to diminish the 20 years of work you've put in. So it just goes into like making better decisions where I love competing, but I was starting to lose to people that I could have beat when I was 16, you know? So like,
yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. Like, I'm losing to these people, and I know I wouldn't have, for how arrogant that sounds, I wouldn't have if I was
prepared.
Yeah, prepared, taking it seriously, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And at black belt, there is no easy matches.
And the return on investment and the reward that you get from doing this and you know, doing coaching and the kids and the adults is probably so much greater than the reward that you might get from competing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Like,
he's like, no fucking way.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like,
it might not be. Go ahead.
No, I think it's just different. Like, so it's competing, especially at a high level, is nice. And you, like we were talking about with the Leon Edwards feeling, like, even, I fought for Bellator. I got offered a contract for Bellator a couple years ago, probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, probably. Yeah, before 2020. And I wasn't training. I wasn't sparring, wasn't doing anything like that. That is still way far removed from a UFC championship. So it's probably a surreal feeling what he's feeling. And, wins like that are, pretty crazy.
Highs, emotional highs.
Yeah, exactly. So but it is different. Like, as a competitor, like, I love watching the kids. I love watching somebody that, just comes to jiu-jitsu, loses 20 pounds, learns something, the camaraderie about being around, 100 other people that they, can become friends with. That's different. I like that because I'm just not a piece of shit.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I'm a pretty empathetic person, so seeing people grow and me have any part in it is nice. Like watching these kids learn something or making friends and hanging out. That's awesome. Like, jiu-jitsu is cool, but it's not for everybody either. People are going to quit jiu-jitsu. People aren't. For me, it's my life, but it's not going to be everybody else's life. So that's different. It's just, and then my selfish need to, for the longest time, fulfill competitions, and the gratitude that I had towards the work I put in and winning. That was just a different feeling. Now, like you said, it's really nice watching the hard work of the academy grow. And like sometimes I'll sit back and I'm like, that's nice. But I'm such a competitor that it's not enough.
Right.
So like I'm still really competitive. So I think like, man, well, this person has, way more students, or this person's competition team's doing better. We can be better than that guy. We're better than that team. We should be able to smash that guy. So I transfer that to the guys.
Right. So and that is interesting because that's like seeing that competitive side, but from a different perspective, kind of, because it's not you personally going on the mats against one other individual. It's you thinking, how is my academy competing against other academies, or how am I doing against other coaches and things like that?
Yeah, no, that's a huge thing because I don't want to lose anything. So, but I lose a lot, right? It's part of it. But at least knowing, it's like the old theory about anything. Well, that they can do it, why can't I? So growing the team, building the team. I had no idea about a business when it came to opening up the gym. So building the team, growing the team, wanting the team to be successful, then watching the team be very successful and know, we not only is it like we belong here, but it's also like, of course, I'll smash all their coaches, and so we're better. Like that's how you got to think about things. You can't just like, okay, I'm just happy to be here.
Right.
Like, that's fucking lame.
No, yeah.
Do you see any other kids, or maybe not kids, but even adults that very much remind you of yourself at their age or at that part of your journey, sort of where they are now? Is there anyone that you get that sort of connection with? I mean, you don't have to name them, but I'm saying, do you ever have that feeling of like, hey, I remember being here. I remember being like that. I remember being that mentality. Yeah. Do you see that kind of thing? Yeah,
there's a lot. See, and that's one thing people don't really realize too is like, I was good. Like I won a lot, but also there was people that were much better than I was, but I just didn't quit. So there's a lot of kids that I see and like young men, or even these girls that the women's class is getting more popular, and I watch. They love jiu-jitsu and they love training and they're getting good, but then 6 months later they don't want to train anymore. So it gets discouraging in that point.
I'm sure a lot of people do the trial run. Hey, there's come for a week and they like it, so they stay for a month, and then, I mean, a lot of people go through the thing, especially like Dominic. This is why, because Dominic first started out he was in 10th Planet in Whittier. They had a little youth center, and Dominic was basically like excited because he had been watching MMA fights with me. And I've been watching MMA since 2005, maybe. Like I consider myself a legit hardcore fan, where I've known a lot of the old stuff, I know the new stuff, and I've never trained. I got in a really bad car accident when I was 20. My leg, I shattered my femur, my tibia, my ankle, so my knee is like this weird thing full of metal. And I know there's people that have injuries, and I always feel like I don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, this leg is an issue with it. You better take it easy on this leg. So I just stayed away from it. I'm like, fine, I'll just be I'll get into stick to being someone who's watching. But so with Dominic, he had been watching these fights with me, and he's like, I want to do that because Dominic he loves striking, like he wants to hit, and he never got in trouble very much for hitting other kids, but he's a lot smaller. He's got bad HD. He had a lot of he was a preemie when he was born, so he's a lot smaller than the kids his age. So a lot of kids would pick on him because they hear the way he talks, and he's got like a speech impediment and everything. So he was always ready to rumble with anyone. Like, he's not afraid of anyone. He's tiny and stuff, but he's He's actually really well behaved here, but like outside of here, like he can really, like, if people fuck with him, he gets mad. He wants to fight.
He's cool.
So like with him, I was like, well, let's get you into jiu-jitsu, because I don't think, he was like 6 at the time. I'm like, I don't know that I want to get you in anything striking yet, but if you want to work your way up to being an MMA fighter, I think it'd be cool to start out at 10th Planet. For me, that was really cool. Like, dude, 10th Planet, that's dope. My son's in the 10th Planet Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, So we got him in there, and he just got bored after like 3 weeks, and he was like, when do we get to hit people? And I'm like, Dom, I told you multiple times, it's jiu-jitsu, there's no hitting. And he was just like, I don't want to go anymore. And I'm like, what? And he was just like, yeah, I don't want to go. I thought I was going to get to hit someone. And I was like, Dom, I said it like 15 times, there's no striking. So then we went over to Taekwondo, and he was cool with that for a little bit, and he just got kind of bored with the poses and because Dominic, his attention span is tiny. Like, he's on to the next thing within a week usually. So there's a lot of having to kind of force him to keep doing these things. And then I'd been talking to George, actually, just kind of catching up, because George is my buddy from like I don't know if did you go to Sorensen Elementary
Catherine
School?
Edwards.
Nah,
So it was just Edwards. Okay.
Washington. Yeah.
Okay, so I met him in middle school, and he's just like nicest guy. When I was talking to Kyle about setting this episode up, I was like, the thing whenever I think about George, I just think like he was just so raised right. He's such a good dude. Like there's no negative. I'm waiting to hear that he like drowns puppies on the weekends or something, because there's got to be something to balance out all the good, right?
Awesome dude. Awesome dude.
So I was talking to him about it, and he was just like, hey man, I've been at this spot for a couple years, and I'd seen him post stuff, and I knew about Tillis, but I just was like, we'd been moved around a couple of times, and I was like, I don't know, let's see. And once we moved to La Habra, I was like, all right, we have to get him into this now, because he wanted it. We have an electronic drum set at home, so he had said he wanted to get into drums, and I'm like, cool, and then we'll get you in a drum class. And then the day before I signed him up, he's like, nah, fuck that, I want to go into MMA. And I was like, okay, that's cool. What we were talking about before, and how come you said no to that? And you said, all right, it's fine. So I was like, I'm just doing it then, I'm signing you up. And I was like, I know a few people that had talked about Tillis, but then I knew a little bit about CSW, and I was like, that might be kind of cool. And then I kind of looked into it, and I was like, no, I think we're better off just going to Tillis, because it just seemed more of a family environment for the kids. And then I knew George, so there's a way in there. You and I had kind of followed each other on Instagram, Noah, for a while. So
yeah,
I didn't know you, but we knew about each other. I know I've had some people on the show that know you. Like, we talked about Batiste, Romy, Aram. Shout out to both those guys. And so the MMA community in Southern California, you guys all kind of know each other from competing, from coaching with and against each other, sparring. I know Chris Coley from shout out to him too. He's gonna be on soon. He was supposed to be on like a year ago, and COVID fucked him over. Like he didn't pop, but like the owner of his gym did. So he had to like emergency fly down, or like shoot down to the gym, and he coached the gym for like a week on his own at Los Angeles Muay Thai. So I love that whole sense, since I was like, I'll come here, and we came here, and it's awesome, it's perfect. Like, Dom's having a really good time. I told him like, hey, George has a son named Noah. I'm sure you guys are around the same size. You might end up partnering up with him. And he like fucking met Noah, and everyone here was really cool. So he went right there and was like, that's gonna be my new homie. Like that's my buddy. So we're having a real great time here, and it's awesome. It's cool to even watch and just see what's going on. And dude, I feel for you, because I see when you're fucking coaching kids classes. Oh my god!
It was so funny when he said, I love that George is here and he gets to bear some of the responsibility of these kids with me.
No, I luckily get a lot of help. Like George, Juan, Edgar, Angie's always on the mat. Like, I get a lot of help with the parents and stuff like that. So I don't have kids, so it's kind of hard. I kind of watch my boundaries about discipline, and I don't want to be overly disciplined.
Right.
But some of them are reckless. George's boys, and not just because we're buddies, his boys are really well behaved, and there's a lot of parents that are on it, and their kids are really well behaved. But there's stragglers where there's some kids that they are very, very hyper. They don't want to listen. They don't want anything going on. And I'm kind of in the way of like, and I'll tell people this when they call me, and they're like, hey, can my 3-year-old do jiu-jitsu? And I tell them bluntly, I say, I want them to get something out of it. A 3-year-old, you're just going to be paying for glorified babysitting. And so when they're 5, come in, and we'll see if there's any type of retention. So, I think a lot of people would be like, yeah, come in. It's going to be...
no, that's super great. That gives you the honesty.
Yeah, because if not, I'm going to be losing my hair just trying to get this kid to do anything remotely close to jiu-jitsu. A lot of times there's programs that will have like a Tiny Tots 3-year-old class, and they're just running from cone to cone for 30 minutes and doing these things, which is, it's business. They have to make a living, but that's not jiu-jitsu. So they're not learning anything. They're not even for the youngsters. Like George will help me with the little guys, and a lot of times it's just going over mount or side control or how to control the back positional stuff for a while. But you do that, and they get that, then they can start adding submissions or escapes. It's a longer process for the kids. But
just to relate that to something that might be a little bit more relatable to the masses, like when you go and you watch little kids in a t-ball game, and they hit the ball off the tee, and then the whole team runs to the ball. It's like that same kind of thing where they're not learning the actual X's and O's or the thinking of how do you play this game. They're just see ball, hit ball, go chase ball.
Oh yeah, I was going to my 5-year-old niece's, I think it's softball, right? Softball class, softball games last year, and it was hard to watch. Like it's man, I was like, I could have thought
it's like everything to keep you in your seat.
Yeah, and then you want to be supportive, and you're there, but it's also like, man, there's so many other things I could have done this Saturday. But like, it's cool. It's like
could have competed.
Yeah, shit. It's like go Charlotte, go. But like, they don't even know what's going on. They're in the dugout, like licking the bats and stuff. They have no fucking idea what's going on. And it's like I said, I'm not a parent, so I don't. A lot of this shit teaches structure, which is good. Like, okay, they're not able to do a triangle their second day, but at least they understand the structure of like, there's an adult telling you what you need to be doing. You should follow direction.
Right.
If you can't follow direction, then you're not going to participate.
Right.
And I try my best to discipline them, but
it's rough.
Yeah,
it's also not your.
It gets rough. It's not my. That's one thing I say, which I say it amongst like George and Juan and some of my buddies that are helping me with class. I say like, I can teach these guys jiu-jitsu, but why do I got to teach them like respect and stuff? That should come from the home, I'm assuming, right?
But you're right that there are parents that bring the kids here because they're like, I just need a break, and I need to be able to get them into something. So they're out there, they're doing stuff, and then I look out there and I see kids sprinting and just sprinting around. And he's a kid. He's tiny. They're kids, so you can't be like, oh, what a little asshole. It's just a little kid. But at the same time, the parents are like, well, I mean, the parents. I'm saying the responsibility should be the parents being like, hey, let's, And there's a few moms that I hear that just fucking yell at their kids and they're like, get off here, you're in trouble, and you're punished. And the kid's like, I don't fucking mind.
Yeah.
And but then there's some kids that are like 10, 11 that you watch them and they're not running around, but they don't want to be here.
Yeah.
They're doing bare minimum. They're not. They're here to kind of mess around and make friends, and like that's understandable for their end because they're like, mom made me come here.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like the
as a parent, you should be able to be more in tune with your child and be like, okay, he doesn't want to be here. What do you want to do? What do you want to do?
Because I watch it and I see it, and it makes me like. I'll be honest. There's kids that Dominic is partnered up with. This actually happened the other day. This was hilarious. I'll just tell the actual story. So like, there's this kid here who's a little bit bigger than Dominic who doesn't want to be here. He doesn't care. He doesn't do any technique the right way unless a coach comes over and forces him to do it the right way. And Dominic he's been here for a month. He's still trying to learn too. He's pretty new to all of this. So I'm looking at it like I want Dom to get better. I'm not here he's not here to have a good time and make friends. Like that comes with it, but he's here he's here to learn and get better.
You're trying to learn a skill.
Right. And like I was raised by like a sports dad who like there was no fun. It was all about technique. Yep. If I made a bad pass, I got kicked out of the gym. My dad was one of those crazy sports dads, so I know that world too, and I don't want to push too hard, but I'm like looking at it like, hey, he's going to get better, and it's my job to help him get better. So I see him training with this kid. The kid's just fucking around the whole time, and I'm watching him, and every time Dom looks over at me, he's giving me the look like, fuck, my dad's going to get mad, Yeah. And I'm not like some hothead. I'm not going to yell or anything, but he knows I'll tell him something. So they were training. It was like a Thursday, so they were doing kickboxing, and Dom's holding mitts for this kid. The kid's not doing what he's supposed to do at all. He's fucking around. He's smiling, joking. I called Dominic over in the middle of them training, and I said, Dominic, I told you about this kid. I told you not to partner up with him. I said, when they break, don't wait for someone to come to you. Pick someone. Go pick a guy who knows better than you, and go out there and get your ass kicked a little bit, or not even ass kicked, but just learn what from someone better than you.
Yeah, he might be ripping on the mitts good, and then in your mind you're like, oh, when it's my round, I better do just as good. I better try at least.
So so I called Dominic over in the middle of like the drill. So Dom's like all embarrassed, and he comes over and he's like, Dad, I'm like, I need you to go find Coach Noah and tell him that you need to get another partner because just say the kid's he's not trying hard, he's not paying attention, he doesn't care. And Dom was really embarrassed, but I'm like, I don't care, man. I'm doing this to help you. Go find Coach Noah. So instead of finding Coach Noah, he goes back to the kid and calls Noah over to him and tells him to Coach Noah in front of the kid.
I remember that.
He goes, my dad says that I can't partner, like points at the kid. He was right in front of him. He goes, my dad says I can't partner up with this guy anymore because he's not trying hard. He's not actually he's not doing anything, so I need to go with someone else. And Noah, without skipping a beat, yeah, that's a motorcycle. Noah, without skipping a beat, just goes, all right, and he like grabs Dom and moves him over to another kid, switches him out, and he got partnered up with like Ryder or somebody who's actually tries hard, you know. So it was from then on. And it was funny because Dom goes, yeah, the kid, like, you know, he was all sad. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem.
Well,
I mean,
truth hurts sometimes.
Yeah,
and I was like, also, I was like, I didn't tell you to say it in front of him, dude. I was like, that's why I said go to Coach Noah.
Yeah.
But Dominic, again, he's
right.
it's hard for, like, he's not the average kid. I mean, people who don't know what ADHD is, that shit is legit a huge issue for people, for children. I mean, adults now, there's a bunch of us who are our age who have it, never knew about it, and had all kinds of struggles. Like, you think about the crazy kid that you knew in school that went wild, that got in trouble a lot, that was in a lot of street fights, the crazy kid who did a bunch of drugs when he was 14, 15. Some of those kids just have undiagnosed ADHD, and their parents were like, I've had enough of this shit, because it's crazy. There are a few different types. Dominic basically will just snap if he doesn't get what he wants. If he doesn't understand why things are going a certain way, he goes into full defense mode, like you're trying to hurt him, and he freaks the fuck out. He starts yelling. You won't hear it here, because here it's not that kind of thing.
He's pretty well behaved here. But
he's very quiet. He just misses a lot of the I've seen a lot of times. I'm like so excited when I see you or any of the coaches walk up to him in the middle of the drill, because I'm like, all right, he's finally gonna get it. Because Dominic won't be able to watch you do something. Him and I are the opposite. Like, I can watch anybody do anything and figure it out on my own. I don't like the one-on-one. I don't like I don't like any sort of training where I have to sit there and listen to somebody explain it. It doesn't work for me. I do well with watching somebody else do it and then figuring it out on my own. Like, that's how I work. Anything athletic like that, I just let me do it and I'll figure it out. He needs the one-on-one time. So actually, this is something off the show, but I actually want to do some. I want to get into some privates with you whenever we have a chance. But that's beside the point. Cool. But it's just interesting to watch the play. It's like the practice for kids is such a microcosm of, like, it's just its own little universe of, like, different personalities. Yeah. There's the kids that think they're doing the right thing because they're hitting the mitt hard. Yeah. You hear the loud smack, and they got a swagger. And then you see them sparring, and they look terrible. And
but I would actually like kind of what you're saying. Some kids just don't want to be here, and you see that all the time. But even the kids that are just ripping on the mitts, that effort, I'll fix it eventually. But at least they're trying. There's kids that aren't even, like you said, I'll look around sometimes in the same kid over and over and over. Just there's no effort. Effort goes a long way, you know. So
well, that's what you want. You want the kids, no matter how bad they are.
We can fix the poor technique. It's not even trying, or not even like wanting to be here, rolling around on the mat without even having any idea what the fuck you're doing.
And that's the thing with Dominic. Dominic doesn't even understand.
At least he's trying.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say he doesn't understand how to point or how to win a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match, because we used to have what I would call, like, I would have to call it grappling, because I don't want him going around telling people we're sparring like his dad, but we'd put on like MMA gloves and have like little simulated fights, and it was like, if he got a good shot on me, I'd fall to the ground, and so he understands MMA, he understands what to do, but just pure Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he doesn't understand points. He doesn't understand how to win. When someone mounts him, he has no idea other than bucking. So that's what I'm excited for is more, just to keep coming back, doing more drills and sort of learn all that stuff. And I mean,
it'll come together.
It's great to have, like George's son Noah, someone around his age who's been here for 2 or 3 years, that's around the same size, to kind of help out with that sort of thing.
How do you keep them motivated, George? Because the boys train like 3-4 times a week, and they're tired and stuff, but they're always on point. So how do you keep them motivated to wanting to train?
Well, I think with Nogan it's a little easier because he wants to do it. He wants to train. He wants to get better. He's excited for high school wrestling.
He's your older son, right?
Yeah. Okay. He's 13. So with him it's a little easier. He's on point. Noah's a little harder. He's probably undiagnosed ADHD.
Yeah, he was asking me a few questions about that earlier. I'm like, dude, it might even be because it's hard to tell in public. And it's hard to tell in this situation where they have something that they're doing. When they're engaged in something, you might not see all the things. And then you told me some stuff that goes on at home. And I'm like, yeah, because Dom has, like, explosive rage where he's not like that here. You wouldn't expect that. No, I'm no bullshit. Dom will start hitting walls. He'll slam doors. And, like, I was raised in the old school way where, like, if you do that kind of shit, you get slapped in your mouth. And I've never hit Dominic. Dominic, he's technically my stepson. I met him when he was 4. So in the beginning, it was like I didn't feel comfortable hitting anyone because I got hit a lot when I was younger. So there's that weird kind of traumatic thing where you're like, you don't want to pass it down onto your own kid. So I never really hit him. And either way, I was going to hit like a stepson. That's fucking weird.
Yeah.
And then at this point, I've been in his life. His father hasn't been around in like 5 or 6 years. He's non-existent. So I'm his, I'm his dad.
You're his dad.
Everyone, he calls me his dad. He doesn't tell anyone, stepdad. He jokingly will say that every now and then, like
Just
to bust
screw
my
with you.
balls. Yeah. But he knows what's up. Like I raised him, not his, so now we're at the point where if I wanted to, I guess that could be the case, but it doesn't fix anything. Like he has a neurological problem with the way he processes information. Like what he looks at when he freaks out in his room, it's like, you guys don't understand me. You're trying to hurt me. So he goes in this, he loses it. He even forgets what he did sometimes, and that's scary. So like,
I just do that when I drink.
Well, yeah. See, that's the thing. And then
Zanny
imagine
boys.
pouring alcohol in that
Yeah.
scenario when you're a teenager, high school. Like that can be a problem.
Yeah.
So that's
Super.
when you see a lot of the people that are out of control. Maybe
Yeah,
they
like
have
you're
some
saying.
neurological problem that was never diagnosed because it wasn't in the 90s when we were growing up. That wasn't a thing. Like I brought it up when I was 18 to my parents. I was already in college. I was away, but I was like, I'm talking to all these dudes. I live with these 3 guys. They all have diagnosed ADD, and they're like, you're way worse than us. And it's not the same kind of thing. Like, I don't have an explosive rage like Dominic has. I have a lot more of, like, the performance anxiety stuff where I melt the fuck down. I have all these crazy thoughts of things that are going to happen that don't actually happen, a lot of quirky little things. It's not a problem for me. I've gotten over a lot of it. I worked through it just because that's how I am. You got some over there for you. But with Dominic, his is a lot more severe where, it fucks his brain up, What's that? Oh, that. I keep thinking there's something going on back there. Yeah, so with Dominic, this is the kind of thing where when he spars, man, that's the most intense the most sharp Dominic I've ever seen. When he spars like
Controlled
in
chaos,
kickboxing,
huh? Yeah.
he loves it, man. So
That's cool.
I watched him. He's only been sparring twice, and
Yeah.
both of those days he's like he's in heaven. That's his thing. And he told me when he was a lot. Actually, the day I met him, he punched me in the face.
Oh shit.
Like when he was 4, like Rocio brought him over to the house I was living in at the time, and I was kind of like trying to play with him, see what he wanted to play. I'll figure this out. Like, you go over there, babe. I got let me be stepdad. And we were kind of like jokingly wrestling around, and he just punched me in the face. And Rocio just like, Rocio's my fiance. She's just like, oh my God, like, uh-oh. And then I just took him down to the ground, just like grabbed his legs, took him down. I'm like, what? You want to fight? And we started, and he had this huge smile on his face. And I'm like, right then I was like, okay, we're going to have that kind of relationship where we're going to need to scrap a little bit, because he loves it. He enjoys it. He's one of those. He's the opposite of me. I was afraid of fighting when I was a little kid because my dad never taught me how to fight, and my dad, being the sports dad, was like so intense against losing anything. So I grew up with a fear of losing.
Can't get in a fight because I don't want to lose the fight.
Exactly. That's true. You mentioned that yesterday.
It takes a man to be able to lose a fight.
And you know what? I didn't. That's how. And the truth was, I lost a lot of sports games. That wasn't a big deal to me because it was like that's part of the thing. I was always like a captain on the team. We played soccer, baseball, basketball year round. I played football in high school. I did some track stuff just to get the to add something to the resume, so to speak. But so I grew up in that world, and I was never a fighter because I was the older brother. I wasn't supposed to keep don't hit your little brother kind of thing, and that happened all the time anyway. But I was just always like, hey, I'm an athlete. Like, that's my thing. I'm not into fighting. And Dominic is just surprised me. He's just this little barbarian that likes to get hit in the face. He likes to hit back. He's got that personality. So, bringing him to this class and him being able to spar, he was in heaven. The first time he sparred was with Noah, cool. And it was funny because Noah was like, all right, this kid's first time, and Dominic went nuts. Dominic didn't know he could hit him in the face. And so, like, Noah landed like 3 or 4 big hooks on Dom. And so, like, Dom was smiling after like a psycho. The sparring session ends, practice is over, and I'm not sure is it Aaron Hernandez or what's that guy's the Aaron that's the pro MMA guy or
killer?
Aaron. Yeah, Aaron.
not him.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, George.
He's like a
Aaron
Puerto Rican guy, right?
Yeah, Aaron Ordondo.
Or okay, I don't know his last name.
Close,
I could have sworn I saw it on his Instagram. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that dude was hanging around. Shout out to him. I'll have him on the show too because we've been talking. But that guy was like hanging around after that sparring session, and he was like, oh, like just hyping Dom up.
Yeah.
And Dom that was like the best day of his life.
That's what he does. Aaron's like a hype man. Yeah.
And he was just
I kind of want to circle back because Noah asked a really good question to George, and you were answering it, but he was talking about how do you keep your kids on point, and you had talked about your older son, and then you were getting into the younger son, and then Lance kind of went on a little tangent, which is okay.
We're still talking about his son.
So like I wanted to make sure you got a chance to continue that.
No, just with Noah. Yeah, sometimes like it's just he's tired, doesn't want to be here. He can be that kid too, but I think for the most part, like he does enjoy it. He has fun here, you know.
He probably also sees he's got his older brother there, so there's that thing too. Like, hey, look, my older brother's getting better. I want to get better too.
Yeah,
and
there's that competition with them too,
of
for
course.
sure. Yeah, like
What's their age difference? Like 4 years, 3 years?
3 years. So like earlier we were talking about like it's more natural to wrestle and stuff than strike, and yeah, for them 100% before they even started here.
Rolling
Like,
on the floor.
oh man, they nonstop just fight. Like it's gotten to the point. I remember one time where it's just like, you know what? Go in the backyard and fight. Yeah, like,
and that's what it's about. Especially like as kids, I remember fighting with my cousins a lot, and it was about grabbing you and taking you down and holding you down and controlling you and saying, "Okay, I got you. Stop.
Yeah,
Stop.
exactly.
I have you in control. Stop now." Yeah.
But going back to that, like, yeah, Noah, he competes really well. Like he's like, for him, he's not nervous. It seems like he just goes in there and does what he knows what to do. You know. So yeah, he's motivated in that sense, and also you throw in like incentives. You know, hey, you can play extra video games. You know.
Right. Yeah. There you go. There you go. And no, I really like that question you asked because it was more of like a parental type question, like
Yeah.
you know, and I thought that was really good.
I mean, it's stuff I don't see, so it's nice. Like, you know, like I said, unbiasedly, his kids are pretty well behaved. Juan's kids are pretty well behaved. There's a bunch, like 75% of the kids in the gym are pretty well behaved. But I'm like, I always wonder, like, what are they doing? Oh, there it is. What are they doing that maybe
Right.
that's other people aren't doing? I don't know.
Right.
Because it's nice. So, and to be like able to train, like George's wife trains. Yeah, obviously he trains their schedule. Their little daughter Amelie's training. So to train all week, and I'm sure there's a little burnout, but to not get burnt out and to be well behaved, it's kind of like, all right, something's
right here.
Whatever the recipe is, you're doing it right.
Good job.
Secret sauce. By,
And that's
Paulo Costa.
that's high praise though. Like you know, like you're doing something right as a parent. That's high
He
praise.
probably just whoops the shit out of all
George, for all the nice guy that we
Yeah.
think he is, he's out there beating these
Yeah,
kids.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
You get no dinner.
Child abuse and lack of dinner.
Yeah.
That is. Do you have do you want to have kids at any point, or is that
Yeah,
like
I'm trying right now. You know what? I never understood that term, and this will probably be like upsetting to some people, but I'm living it a little bit. Like, so I've been trying for over a year, and no tests or well, I took a test and I'm good. My wife seems like she's good. It's just kind of a like the doctor said she's good, but I never, you know, when you're a kid, I don't know how G-rated this podcast is, but like
It's definitely not.
okay,
Yeah.
so
Say
like
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So when you're a kid, like you hear about like you better not have sex or you're gonna have a baby, and you're like, oh shit. Or like there's instances where like you raw dog once and you're worried about it, you know. But imagine like I've been raw dogging for a long time, you know, with my wife. And
No, that's crazy.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy to me
It's,
because I
you never understood that.
I'm a little bit scared of like if I feel like if I shoot it in, it's gonna happen.
Oh no,
you know?
I've been trying. Yeah, I've been trying a couple times a day for over a year and nothing, you know. So
it's a great problem to have.
yeah, exactly. Like
On God, that is
Yeah.
a great problem.
yeah, and I thought it was like I said, I got some tests. Like I have pretty high testosterone and stuff. So like, I don't know. I'd like to, but then you go into like, you know, it'll happen when it's supposed to. Or
Right,
whatever.
right,
So
exactly.
there's no rush. I just
No.
don't want to have kids. And some people want to. I just don't want to have kids when I'm like 45 and have a kid, or like I'm really close to my dad, and my dad had me at 34, so he's 66 right now, and I want him to, you know, how much of a selfish act this is. I want him to enjoy my
Absolutely.
kids, you know.
Absolutely.
So like
that's actually unselfish.
Yeah, that sounds selfish.
yeah, but I mean like in a sense of, you know, maybe pressure towards my wife or anything like that. But I you know, I
Oh,
want
okay,
I
that
see
makes
you.
sense.
yeah,
I
like
see.
and she wants to, and she's trying. She gets upsetting. It's an emotional thing too for
Super.
her.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I can
and
only
so-
imagine.
She
There's
falls
a-
into the guilt trap.
Yeah,
right?
there's inadequacies that once you know, she takes tests all the time and will be discouraged and stuff like that, but it'll happen. There's no, you want to take the stress off the table, but I'd like to have kids, especially sooner than later, so my dad can hang out with them and stuff. My dad's like the best person I ever met, so it's kind of like you want them to know your dad or, you know, your family. I'm really
Right,
close
right,
with my
right.
dad, so it's like that'd be cool.
No, your
But-
dad seems pretty cool. When I asked you that question, how did your parents feel about you competing in unsanctioned fights when you were like a teenager? And
Yeah.
you were like, my dad was
Oh,
super into
my
it.
dad would drive me to South San Diego to go fight and
That's a cool ass dad,
yeah.
man.
then we'd shoot back in the same day and grab some food. And I have a funny story. I was at a jiu-jitsu tournament when I was 14, and my dad's just like a hard ass. Like he's a real asshole, but like a really like he
with the heart in the right place.
Yeah, he means it well, but he's very like hardened, you know. So this one's a pretty funny story. I broke my ankle really bad at a jiu-jitsu tournament. I was throwing somebody, but my foot got caught in the mat, and I broke my ankle. I could hear it like snap like a wet carrot. And
a white carrot. I've never seen a white carrot.
A wet carrot. A wet carrot, yeah. Oh. And we were all the way down in Huntington Beach at Kleber's gym, and he just think I'm being a bitch. He's just like, come on, get up, let's go. You know, you're not gonna compete again? Fuck it, let's go home. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, Dad, I can't walk. You know, like I can't get up. And my buddy Jason, who was older, he like put me up on his shoulder and walked me to the car. And we're shooting up Beach Boulevard. No fucking sense of urgency to get me home or anything. Just kind of cruising. He stops at like Jollibee, like in Westminster, and my ankle is swollen as shit. And he goes, well, you get no drive-through. He stops and he's gonna go sit in to eat. Right? Wow. And he's like, well, you want any food? He goes, well, you better get the fuck out of the truck and get it and come get it. And like I remember hopping. Like I had to go fill up my fountain drink, like hop over there and stuff. And then and then he takes me to press. We get to Whittier and he takes me to press and they do x-rays. And she comes in, she's like, yeah, you cracked your tibia and fractured your fibula. So I cracked my ankle in 2 places, you know. And I was like, I fucking told you it was broken. He goes, well, how am I supposed to know? You know?
I told you.
Yeah,
I don't have an x-ray machine.
Yeah, exactly. He goes, well, how am I supposed to know? I'm not a doctor. So it's just, that's my dad, like, in a nutshell. He's just like, same thing. Like if I lost a match or something, he was always really supportive, but, you know, then he'd be like, oh, you should have smashed that guy or you should have won, you know? And I'm like, oh, I tried, Dad. Sorry. You know? Yeah. So, he always had a perfect balance of, he wasn't one of those dads, because we would watch wrestling dads and stuff like that, and guys that were super gung-ho, they burn their kids out. And he was really good about it. He didn't burn me out. He didn't press it crazy. He just, but he's really good. One thing I can attribute my dad is being like, he knows how to talk to me to like he would fuck with me. I remember purple belt was my hardest belt. I was a young purple belt. I had a really hard time. Like I think I only won a couple of matches at purple belt, I think. And he'd be like, you know what, it was a good run. But let's just stop with the jiu-jitsu stuff. You know,
wow.
like maybe we're done with this.
But that was his way of pushing.
Yeah, and it was so weird because then I'm like, oh, I don't want to be done.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, no.
I got more.
Yeah.
I swear I got more.
Yeah, and then the next tournament I would compete really well or something. And then, you know, so he knew how to talk to me where it would get in my head. Like he was really good at you know, fucking with my mind. And like he just knew the things to say and stuff like that. So it was a combination of him being a hard ass, but, you know, empathetic towards if I was, you know, down and out or stuff like that. He was good, and he would tell me. He was the one that would actually tell me. He goes, I remember we were in New York, and I was rated like number 1 in the nation at the time. So I went to New York.
Wow.
It was
no
good.
big deal.
Yeah. Wow.
I was good as a kid, and not anymore. I'm just a fat drunk. But
you're a coach now, brother.
Yeah, as a kid I was good. I won the nationals 4 times, so I was decent. But I went to New York to kind of solidify that rating. There was a website back then who was rated, and would show who's rated number 1 and so on. And I was rated number 1, and there was a kid that was from like Virginia or something that was he beat me once earlier that year. He was also very good. And you know, like I said, I think I'm a pretty big empathetic person, you know. And so I went, you know, my dad's the epitome of blue collar. He raised me and my sisters by himself. Worked really hard, worked 2 jobs, would always be working. So, like, it was just enough.
Had the lights on, have food on the table.
Yeah. And, you know, you pick what bill you can't pay so you can pay the other ones,
right.
You know. And I would say this, and some people are like, well, how'd you compete all the time? I've been sponsored since I was a kid, so I never paid for tournaments. And at training, I didn't have to pay for training.
That's what hard work does, guys.
Yeah. So I didn't have to pay for training. I was sponsored at the gym because my dad, I would compete all the time. So I was sponsored by the gym. And my dad, when they opened up that gym, my dad did some work. Like, you know, we'd put thousands of dollars worth of construction work, you know, with his labor. And so, you know, if I had to pay for jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't have been able to do it. That's kind of the situation I was in.
Yeah.
And so he saved up all his money because I needed to go do that tournament in New York to kind of. and I lost. I won the gi and I lost the no gi, and I was so upset. I was crying. I was outside crying like a little bitch, and I'm telling him, I'm like, I'm sorry. Like you spent all this money and I was supposed to win. You know, I was supposed to win. What the fuck? I didn't say what the fuck because he would hit me, but I said like I was supposed to win, and he goes, you think we're out here? And I'm thinking like, okay, we're out here, so Noah's automatically going to win. He goes, there's a good chance you're going to lose. You may
50-50,
yeah. He goes, you
baby.
may win, you may lose. A big tournament. He goes, and you can enjoy the trip and relax, but it's not a. There's only two things that are going to happen. You're either going to win or you're going to lose. So for someone who never competed before, like in anything, he did like rodeos and stuff when he was a kid. He used to break horses and stuff like that. So
Where did he grow up to do that?
he grew up in was born in Fresno, but had horse property like in Artesia and then South Whittier and stuff like that. But he lived all over as a kid. So
That's pretty good though, because you just gave us kind of two examples of the extremities of your dad's kind of personality, where like he's saying, "You want some food? Get the fuck out with your broken ankle," and then where he's like, "It's okay if you lose.
Well,
I understand."
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at as a whole. Is like there was a really good balance. Like growing up, I've seen dads totally ruin world-class grapplers that are on their way to. Because nobody gives a fuck what you're going to do at 7 years old, but your dad's an asshole, and he's making you cut weight when you're 7, or you're burning you out by having you do 3 practices a day. My dad was never like that, and I would watch these dads, and I'm like, fucking pricks, you know, like. So he was always cool. Still, would tell me, "Oh, you're the best 5-year-old in the world," you know. That's how his mindset was, and it helped me because you get more confident that way. But when things didn't go well, but I fought harder, I tried hard, you know, it sounds really soft, like, "Oh, you try your best," but like he was cool about it. He'd be like, "Yeah, fuck it, we'll get him next time."
No, especially coming from somebody who you knew could have that other side where it's like, hop out on your broken ankle and get some food.
Yeah, like his whole thing was like, just don't be a bitch, you know.
So did you have contact with your mom when you were younger? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were just split up.
No, yeah. So my mom left when I was like 5, so he raised me and my sisters by himself.
That's not a usual story that you hear.
Yeah, usually it's the other way around.
Right.
But yeah, she was involved in drugs and stuff like that. So now that I'm older, I have somewhat of a relationship with her. But growing up and stuff, I understood cause and effect, and I understood how stressed my dad was, working like crazy. Because we're in Southern California, even 2-income housing, it still struggles, you know. So he's, he raised me and the girls, and he never lost the house, even though he'd say how close it was. He didn't want to move us around. So my dad he would tell me, he told me not long ago, we were having breakfast, before he was like 8 years old, he moved 10 different times, you know. So like, he goes, I wanted to keep you guys in the same house, same area, same schools, because I hated it. Yeah.
Consistency.
So it was tough, but yeah, so he did it all himself, and cause and effect is what I'm saying is, I would watch him struggle like crazy and work these odd jobs, and he's a master tool and die maker, but there's just sometimes, this is the thing too, he's a good tool and die maker, where he'd have these jobs at Northrop, or he'd have great jobs at Boeing or stuff like that, but he needed to be, there was no wife.
Right, so he had to, he couldn't devote all his time and attention to the job.
Well, I mean, he would do the job great, but what happens if I'm sick, or I get in trouble, or Corey's sick, or Shelby needs to get picked up? Boeing's not gonna be like, "Yeah, go ahead, Noah, go
they're
back."
gonna be like, next up.
Yeah, go drive an hour to go pick your kids up, or go do that. So he ended up having to, while we were growing up, he is a master tool and die maker that now that we're adults, people are starting to appreciate and give him job offers and stuff like that, because he's so good at his job.
It's
but
more rare to
and
come
that,
by
yeah,
that,
it's
right?
running out. That's
yeah,
the thing.
it's a dying trade.
Out,
It's a dying trade. But when we were kids, he could have, and he says this, he goes, "Man, if I would have been able to, if your mom was here and she could have watched you guys, I could have been making great money. We could, life could have been a lot easier. We could have been doing vacations or doing things like that." But, he had to stay close to home at little job shops in Santa Fe Springs, or things that weren't even paying him half of what he should be getting paid, so that he can go pick me up from school, or he can, be here real quick if he needed to pick up one of the girls, or if there was an emergency and stuff. He goes, "You guys, I need to be able to pick you guys up from school, or if you're at home alone and I'm working in Hawthorne or something, it's not going to work." So
on the other side of it, it sounds like, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming he didn't have very much time to go find somebody to
else.
be
So-
someone
to
to be with
replace-
another, a
Right.
possible stepmom. Is there? It didn't sound like he had very much time to be out socializing or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, there was really little socializing. He dated women throughout my childhood and stuff like that, but nothing. There was never any stepmoms or anything like that. So, yeah, he's a real one. He did a good job. So, I mean,
I can tell.
yeah, we
It's
try.
evident. It's evident.
Well, we try to we'll tell him, we're like, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Thanks for not letting us die. You know? So,
Yeah.
So it's hard. He did a good job for the cards he was dealt, I guess.
Definitely.
I wanted to ask you too about the origin of your last name, because it's an interesting name. I don't think I've ever heard anywhere else. Do you know like what the nationality of the name is, or?
Actually, I could attribute that back to my dad. He's really big on like the ancestry stuff, and it's Scottish. It's mostly Scottish. Comes from, it's not always Tillis. It was a surname of like Tullius, so it was Tullius before then. Over
It's
time,
Angel Island kind of things, or
Yeah.
Alice Island.
Well, that's
things?
funny because I've seen like
Breaks down.
a Spanish name, Tellez,
Yeah. Yep.
and that's almost very similar.
yeah, you see the Z and you see the S too, like Tellus and
Yep.
so
Yes,
yeah, Teus and
Yep.
Tellez,
Yep.
right? No, I'm Scottish. I'm just a cracker ass bitch, but mostly Scottish.
What about your mom's side?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. She didn't want to she got weird. She didn't want to do the ancestry stuff. But
I'm sure she had some traumatic stuff that
I
you
don't
didn't
know.
want to trigger. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with like
95% whiskey.
95% methamphetamine.
Yeah, exactly.
you guys are familiar with like Anthony Pettis, like his last name Pettis, like when they his ancestors came over from I think like Puerto Rico or something like that. They got to I don't know if I think it might have been Angel Island. I'm not sure, but he said his name Perez. It was Perez, and the guy just understood it in his own way, and so they're like sure. And they basically they didn't want to come over here and be given shit for being Hispanic or whatever their situation was, so they wrote Pettis, and so now that's
cool.
why he's Anthony Pettis. It's actually Perez,
That is-
but
Oh, shit.
That is wild.
that's something
yeah.
I
That's
heard
cool.
because he's got the whole thing where he's
that
got
telephone game.
he's like half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. He always reps those two, and I'm like, how the fuck did you get that name then? And then I remember
Pettis.
hearing a story, and so that's why his name is Pettis. So that's sort of a similar kind of thing, I assume.
Yeah.
Just as one of those things where it changes once it gets to America, and that's it.
Assimilation.
That's-
Part of the assimilation process.
Yeah, you don't hear it a lot, but actually one of the guys was at Snail's Place last year, like at the running store, and he was wearing one of the Academy shirts that said Tillis, and this guy asked him like, hey, where'd you get that shirt? That's my last name. He goes, oh, it's my coach's name. That's the name of our club. And Bobby gave this strange man my number. And so,
You were like, who is
Yeah.
this guy?
so this old dude calls me every 6 months asking if I have an XL shirt. And I tell
How many
him,
have you given him?
Yeah, no, he wants like a certain style that I haven't ran in a while.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I have other ones.
He's like,
and he
no,
goes,
I want that
Yeah,
one.
he goes, I want that black cursive one. I say like, tough shit. Dude.
I already told everybody I'm getting it.
Yeah.
And don't make me a liar.
Yeah, at this point, I'm like, you could have just fucking made it.
Yeah, you could literally just take anything you want and go to
Yeah.
like
Send it to a t-shirt shop and
Yeah.
it'll come back
or
to
like
you.
stickermule.com.
Yes,
Do
Yeah.
whatever
yes.
the fuck you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird.
Hey, put this graphic on a shirt for me.
Yeah, it
Okay.
really wasn't anything special too. I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's really cool though. I mean, it's cool for the kids too, and everyone who's here to be able to have a little piece of their gym. It kind of solidifies you're on the team. It's your squad. Like Dominic was never really on like a single team. You know, like this is my team kind of thing. So getting the patch, like any of you guys just came out with patches. I was bugging the shit out of you about him because I was like, dude, I know he wants to be part of the team and have a patch. So he's getting it put on tomorrow.
Well, the merchandising is such a tough thing for me. Like going back to like
the business part.
Yeah, competing
Yeah.
and stuff is what I like. I
Yeah.
like training, but even 11 years later, I'm still having a hard time with like merchandising and staying in inventory business, stuff like that. It's still learning. So
It is.
sometimes it's hard. I'll run out of shirts and I'm like, oh shit, I should have ordered more. you
Right,
know?
right,
So,
and that's kind of funny because that's kind of it's a little secondary part of what you do that
Yeah.
kind of drives some monetary income and drives like even advertising and things like that. Like
That's
you know,
usually it's mostly advertising, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. But then
Yeah.
there's also like the people that want to go around walking around with their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gear to show everyone that they're part of this team and that
Yeah.
they train. And
it's
there's
hard
like
because I don't realize that. Like I've been in a position of like just teaching and I had shirts from when I was training at other gyms and stuff like that. But I don't realize how much it is or how cool it is for you to have your jiu-jitsu shirt and stuff. Like I said, like I'll go to tournaments and you'll see a whole team, everybody, the fucking
Same
grandma, the toddler, they're all having the shirt, and it just, I kick myself in the ass for not being better at it.
To do a run of shirts for
And-
that competition
Yeah,
for myself,
well,
for my team.
Even just like I said, like I'm empathetic. So if I was like, George, all 5 of you guys need to buy a shirt, like fuck, that's $120 or whatever. You know, like it's hard for me to be like
To tell them to spend that money.
Yeah, and you don't need to tell them. I should have it.
Here's the shirts.
Yeah,
please wear them at the competition.
Yeah,
I would love it.
I should just have the inventory, but in my mind, I always think about like
The money is the bottom line is important.
Yeah, and I hate people having pressure that, oh, well, okay, I guess I got to buy new gear, or I guess I got to buy this shirt shit, and it's $20. You know, I hate having that gloom over people where they feel what's the word, like pressured into it, or like they have to buy the $45 rash guard. And I tell people all the time, when I moved rash guards up to 45 instead of 40, I said, like, I felt the need to tell them that, well, my cost went up, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like
I'm
now
sorry.
they're charging me more to make them. I'm sorry. Like, and people are like, that's all right. It's still cheaper than if I went and bought a Ruka rash guard, you know. But I just hate, like, these are my friends. The people at the gym are my friends. They're my buddies. They're, you know,
Your
they're,
family.
Yeah,
I think, you do a really good job of that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
it's still it's a
you're way
balancing
more
game.
affordable than any other place in the
Yeah.
area, and I think even going back to the shirts thing, like, yeah, everyone wants to wear, you know, like their team shirts and
Represent.
be part of it. Yeah, it's just like yesterday at the beach, everyone was out there.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, it's just hard to put that, like, hey guys, shirts, $25. You need, I'll just have them there if you want to get them.
Well,
Your
I
best
mean-
bet is to go the route of having stock, like
Yeah.
meaning having several shirts. That's why I don't know it doesn't matter who, but I don't know who you get your shirts from or who you get your stickers from or whatever it is. But if there's a lot of online businesses that, like e-commerce type businesses that they have specials. So they'll be like, oh, this in the next 2 days, we're doing, you know, $9 shirts, and then you just fucking load up on, like, you know. And I know that you might not have the fun. I don't know if you're, you know, how much money you got or anything, but that's another thing.
Yeah.
Too. If it's just a business thing, that's always
one thing that I was looking into too is some people are doing like drop shipping, and like that that'd be a cool thing, because you don't make as much money on the shirt per shirt, but I never have to hold any inventory. So like if I had to sign it, you want shirts? Here's the
Straight from the
shop,
company.
Here's the shop website. It will direct to garment. So it's like you can order a shirt, a 3XL if you needed to, and
To your door.
Yep, and they'll print it and send it to you and stuff. 90% of everything is sold online now anyway.
Yeah.
So it would just make it to where I don't have to hold 200 shirts back here in a case.
yeah,
And
that's rough too.
I
But
think if anything, there's more demand than
Supply.
anything.
yeah. Oh yeah, the demand.
And
is,
that's a good problem to have. That's
Yeah.
a good problem
yeah,
to
I
have.
wiped out of those patches in like 2 days.
Yeah.
So,
And Lauren used to train somewhere else, and they'd require her to
Mhm.
buy their shirts to
Require.
practice.
It's a good
Yep.
word. Require.
that's what
to
I hate
practice.
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
dude, that's just a money grab.
Right.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. And I
bullshit.
see it. It's
Well, that's
obvious.
that's what I wanted to shy away from.
Yeah.
And like, there's different gyms, Gracie Bajas and stuff like that. You need their academy gi, you need their academy rash guard. You need. So I try to be loose and I try to be cool. Where people are like, well, is it okay? I was training at a different gym, but I have a different gi. I was like, I don't give a shit.
Fuck
like,
yeah.
you end up signing up, take that patch off, but other than that, you don't need to buy my gi. You know, it's okay.
There's a thing about philosophies there that's their philosophy. You know, whether it's right or wrong, that's their way. They want the uniform, they
Mhm.
want the army, they want the continuous promotion at one level. Whereas here, the philosophy is not the same. It's a little more like, hey, if you're part of the team, you know you're part of the team. You know, there's no pressure here. And some people like that philosophy, to be honest. They
Yeah.
like to be part of a team that's
Yeah.
uniformed and in a row, and
Yeah.
that's one way. And then there's the other philosophy. It's a loose
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
we came here to work sort of thing. We don't need the uniform.
Yeah, or at least you don't need. I don't like requirements, or I don't like pushing people to do things.
You
So
don't
like,
need the branding or the labels.
Yeah. I mean, branding's great, but in a sense of like, okay, Lance, you signed up. Well, you also need to buy the academy gi. You need to buy the academy rash guard, the academy fucking socks or whatever.
All the
Like,
hidden.
yeah, like this guy's paying me for a service, and I'm going
Right.
to tell him what he needs to wear.
Right.
If he wants to grab a team patch and a team shirt, hey, I appreciate
Beautiful.
it. Awesome, yeah. But you don't need to do anything. You know, a lot of times these jiu-jitsu clubs,
That statement right there.
Yeah,
you don't need to do anything.
yeah, you forget who the customer is. So they're coming in rushing from work. They just cleaned up. They're rushing in from work, and now you're going to demand this person to do 100 burpees because they were late. But they're rushing to work, and they're paying their tuition. They're paying you. right? But people forget that, and they kind of have this. They're stuck on power where you were late to my class. You're going to be doing this and this, motherfucker. This person, and most of the time that person never, that instructor never worked a real job. You know.
That's true.
So you don't realize we're in Los Angeles. We're going to be sitting in an hour and a half of traffic. So and they still sat in traffic, came from work, and they're busting their ass to get inside the gym. Let them train.
It's
you know?
even funnier when they do that with kids because
Yeah.
like, the kid didn't drive here, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, you're late, you little asshole.
that adult.
Take a
got me
lap,
here later.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
My dad was busy fucking cheating on my mom,
Yeah.
so it took a little more.
So that's why I'm late.
Yeah,
Coach.
Give me a break.
I remember
just
my
like
friend.
getting yelled at it. Oh, sorry.
My friend San Diego, he played little league baseball, and he was late to his practice, so his dad made him, or the coach made him run laps. His dad was the coach. Like, what the fuck, dude?
Well, yeah, that goes to that kind of dad like my dad, where it's like they definitely don't ever want you to get any special attention on the team. They want everyone else to know that you don't get anything
Make
special.
an example of
so
you.
you're an example,
That's true.
and you get hit way harder than anyone else does with all this kind of stuff. And that happened. That's what I was saying earlier. Like there was times where I made a bad pass and I got kicked out of the gym. Like I had to go sit outside after practice. My practice ends, the door open, so I'm outside regardless of the weather. And who gives a fuck? You're sitting on a stoop out there. Your teammates come out and they're like patting you on the back, like because they know your dad, and they're like, "Sorry, dude." You know, they're
And
like,
that's kind of funny because
Having a pizza party.
is that the best way to show you how to make that bad pass better? No.
it just all that
No.
it does is put you in a tremendous amount of fear to
Yeah.
make a mistake, and when you're afraid of making a mistake, you're not.
You're
loose.
making more mistakes.
There's
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
like trauma.
It's good.
Yeah.
It just sits right in there, and then comes up later, and you're
Yeah.
down in a bottle to go to sleep.
And
That's
then-
the
and then-
life.
Yeah,
that you wanna-
trauma bonding.
And then it manifests itself physically sometimes.
Yeah.
You got like these physical things, and it's like, oh, that's the trauma that I put deep down inside like years ago, and now it's a thorn in my side, literally.
So we were talking about like merchandising and all that. I was always curious about this because I really dig the logo itself, the one you have now, that three-headed
Cerberus.
wolf.
Yeah, the Cerberus.
I was gonna say that's what I was wondering if that's where the whole idea came from.
Yeah, I like it. It's cool. I'm not like, I'm very far off from being artsy or creative or anything like that. So I didn't even design that. One of my old students, JR, did, and I like it. I didn't even really realize it was a Cerberus. Then I remember from Harry Potter and stuff. So
Shout out.
yeah,
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling's. But
It goes further than that. It's
Yeah,
the Cerberus
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
is
yeah,
like
yeah,
ancient Greek.
yeah.
that's for he's
yeah.
Cerberus is the protector of Hades, right?
Right. Yeah. He keeps the dead from coming out.
Yeah.
Keeps anyone from coming
No
in.
one gets
I think
passed.
just visually it's a pretty cool logo.
It looks dope.
Yeah, and
No
most,
one gets passed.
Yeah, most of jiu-jitsu, like they have some lame ass logos, or like there's always like an animal, and so that's like my animal, I guess, like the Cerberus, 3-headed dog. It's kind of cool. Yeah, I've gone through a few different logos, so I like that one. That's cool.
I feel like it very much relates to jiu-jitsu because like that Cerberus that how you said the dead don't get out and the living don't get through, so like, nobody gets past, and that's jiu-jitsu, right? Nobody gets past. If you're a beast at jiu-jitsu, nobody gets past,
yeah, I
right?
don't know. I never looked at it that hard. So.
It's
It's pretty cool, I guess.
The color red and black, is that like a staple of you, or that's how he drew it up?
No, so I will say that the consistency of red and black has been the team colors for a while. I really like red, and it just kind of goes well with black. So every logo or anything that I did was generally red, and the mats originally were red, and then I redid the mats in 17, so now they're gray. They look a little cleaner, but yeah, the red. I like red as a color.
And that's not a cop for the listeners that can't see.
Yeah.
Lance Lance has a whole bag full of different color pop guards for the microphones, and Noah he lets everybody pick their own pop guard, and Noah picked a pop guard and it's red, so he's got a red and black theme to his whole like apparatus right here in front of us.
Yeah, there's no like. I haven't been big on like what's your favorite number or anything like that, but I just always like red, and red is it's an extroverted color, so
it's very loud.
Yeah,
Fire.
yeah.
There's an aggressive thing to it. Red and black to me, because I've always been a red and black person. But those two together, my whole life. I mean, like when I was growing up, like Slipknot was my favorite band. I just everything about the red and black, everything about metal and all that, that stuff. I was really into. That's what I grew up into. Whenever like I liked Kane, the wrestler, just because he was red and black. Like I was like, he's big and like his moves are boring, but I like the fire. I liked all that stuff.
What did
I like
he
the
do?
symbology. Choke slam.
Yeah, choke slam.
Yeah.
Right?
What was that evil ass Star Wars character with the red and black face?
I don't even know.
Darth Vader. Or
Darth Maul.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sick ass character. One of my favorites in the whole series.
I just
Sick
always
ass.
thought those two colors popped very well, and that like the red and the black, there was something like symbolic there. And I did research later on because I'd been so into those colors. I went through the whole like fucking spiritual awakening and all this. I went down the rabbit hole, got in the tool, all this stuff.
Ate a lot of shrooms.
And, yeah, that's true, a lot of shrooms. But what I learned, I got more into like my ancestors and stuff like that because I have a native side, like I got the Apache's blood in me, and then I also have like native, like Mexican stuff, all the like Aztec. I got into some of that stuff, and actually both cultures. I read some books and stuff, and I learned. My brother-in-law is a native. He's Apache too, and we went down those rabbit holes. And
cool.
red and black symbolize wisdom in both of those cultures.
Oh.
So a lot of you see natives that have, and I'm not saying every single tribe, but a lot of red and black paint that's on. If you see a native with red and black paint, they're basically held in high regard for wisdom's sake. Like they've gone through experiences.
Yin and yang almost. Yin and yang almost. Like the red and the black is almost kind of like yin and yang. Like I mean, I know yin and yang is white and black, but red and black can almost kind of be seen as the same kind of juxtaposition. Like super bright, super vibrant, and then devoid of anything. You know.
So it's like mostly, it's like that's just how it was. Like it was sort of like if you get those two, that meant something. And when I read that, I was like, that's excellent. I want to be someone who has wisdom.
Well, it's a good thing to hear.
Yeah, it kind of motivates you to get more into that side of it. Like you know, do some more deep thinking, get in more. It just motivates you to think maybe you're on this path for a certain reason. Maybe that's what that is. So I was curious if red and black meant anything to you, but obviously red is something that you enjoy. So
yeah, nothing significant. I like it.
I just always thought the two colors look dope.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
I
look
swear,
good.
whenever they're together, like if I have a choice, I go red and black. The only reason I always have purple because that's what I started out doing the show with, and
that's
so
cool.
that's the thing. But it's always interesting for me to lay out those colors and see what people pick because I really pay attention to that stuff. I really do. So that's why I don't ever go, oh, here, I don't put it on for you. I'm like, you
and look at George's mellow yellow, and that's just the way he is.
He's super,
Just
super.
one on the top.
Yeah.
So
And that is mellow. That is
so he's
mellow
a
in and of
comfort guy.
itself. Yeah, just
No,
here it
no
is.
preference.
Right, just here it is.
No
It's
pressure.
presenting itself to me.
Such a cool dude. How can I?
Super
What can I
cool.
do to be more
Super
like you?
cool.
Like, cause you every time I'm around
I
you,
don't know.
I just
Smoked
feel better.
A lot of weed.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, like every day, dude. Like,
I smoked before bed, but before we moved into
I
this
love this
apartment,
guy,
I
brother.
smoked
I
every-
love this guy so much, man.
How could you not love?
I know,
George?
man. I know. He's a sick dude.
If you weren't married, I'd think about it. You know what I'm saying?
I'd consider it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then I'm sorry to go off of the whole Slipknot thing because I hear some of the music you play during when the kids are out here,
Shit.
and that's what I think about that is that's probably obviously it's music you like, but there's kids and there's parents
Yeah.
around here. So I mean it's usually like sort of country classic rock stuff that I feel like maybe you got from your dad. Maybe your
Kinda.
dad was into it
Yeah,
and sort of passed that down.
Kinda. More so, the second thing you said, it's kind of hard to like find songs that don't say a lot of bad shit.
Yeah.
And like, so, and those are genres where I like, but I also know that they're not going to be like, yeah, slap my bitch up or anything like that.
Right.
So,
Shout out to the Prodigy.
yeah, exactly. Right. So I put on a lot of Tyler Childers or like classic rock and stuff like that because I like it, but it's nothing too vulgar. But yeah, my dad liked likes a lot of classic rock, and he actually likes a lot of blues and jazz and stuff like that too. So
Yeah, no, I posted something about Texas Flood by Stevie Ray Vaughan. I know you like that one, so I was like, all right, because I that's been my stuff lately. Usually I grew up listening to hard rock, metal, and stuff, and then as I've gotten older, I've gotten into some other stuff, more like progressive music, and now I'm really kind of dipping into blues for the first time ever because
really?
I didn't grow up with anyone that was into blues music, so I never really I just always thought like, oh, it's a little too slow for me. I'm fucking angry. I want to get angry, but now I love it. I love like a Friday where I come home and just get some bourbon and have some people over, chill, and just throw on something. Like I explained in the last episode, but my brother-in-law, he just enjoys grilling. Like he likes to grill with blues music, having people over. Like that's sort of his vibe. And so he started playing some Stevie Ray Vaughan, some other stuff that I was like, when you're buzzed, you kind of like that stuff. And then we're in our 30s at this point. We're not young kids anymore. We're not chasing anger and craziness.
Exactly.
So
you should have some sort of control on your temper by now.
Yeah, you would think, you know, and so hopefully for
so you don't
if you don't, you might be locked up or something.
Exactly.
Like
You should have an idea of like, all right, me listening to this isn't gonna transpire into like me killing some people.
Right.
So,
But
I like one thing is I really like karaoke. So
hey,
Really?
that's
Never-
so cool because like a lot of people are so scared and
Oh, no.
shy of doing
Yeah.
karaoke.
no, I'll do it.
I'm
sober.
down. I'll
Yeah,
do it too.
I do it sober. I do it drunk. I always start off with Led Zeppelin Black Dog is usually my go-to.
That's funny because
Yeah.
everybody has a go-to song.
Yeah,
my
that's my
go-to
go-to.
song is Santeria by Sublime.
Okay, yeah.
It's just so easy.
Yep.
It's just so easy, and it's not like a hard vocal song to
Oh yeah,
sing.
you know it.
Yeah, and it's just so easy. So that's my go-to. But yeah,
I love karaoke.
Where do you go usually for karaoke, or what's some spots that you like to go to?
Lynbrook is good because it has a stage. Lynbrook Bowling Alley in Anaheim. They have a stage, so it's kind of cool. But
That's kind of wild. I never,
yeah, I never heard that before
yeah,
either.
Lynbrook's and
Bowling alley,
yeah, they're cheap drinks. And La Habra Bowling Alley has karaoke. They don't have a stage. That's kind of whack.
That's right.
I've never done
Yeah.
karaoke on the stage before. Well, actually, I did karaoke one time on the stage. It was Bar 107 in downtown LA. Rest in peace. It doesn't
yeah.
exist anymore.
Yep.
But I did Where Eagles There by the Misfits.
Oh, that's hard.
And I didn't even sing it. The first thing I did, as soon as the song started playing, I threw the microphone and I just started mosh pitting in the crowd.
So you attempted to do karaoke.
Yeah, that was that
Just
time.
wanted
And
to
I
start a fight.
got kicked out of the bar. Rightfully so, but you know.
Hey,
How
whatever.
long ago was that?
That was in probably like 2012.
4 days
20,
ago.
No, 2012.
Yeah.
2012. Like over 20 years. Like 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
bar doesn't exist anymore, so it doesn't
It does
count.
not. Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to my youth and my my aggressive nature back then. Yeah. I think I grew from then. I don't know. Maybe.
Hopefully you did. I think you did. I'm proud of you.
What if you just
Thanks.
regressed? That'd be good.
But that might be a good thing too, because I might have like regressed into a position that was
Yeah.
like more pure than the
Yeah.
spot that I was at in that time.
Yeah, if you can't remember, it didn't happen. So.
Zanny boys.
So it's like you'll go for usually Led Zeppelin. What other kind of stuff you like to sing?
Yeah, a little bit of the country stuff. 'Cause it's slower and stuff. Some country. I'll do Maggie May from Rod Stewart.
Good song.
Yeah, like where was it? So I was at me and Kim took a couple days off. We went to Big Bear.
Kim is your wife?
Kim's my
Okay.
wife. Yeah,
Shout out.
shout out Kim. You're cool.
Hey, good job.
You're all right.
Good
I
job
like
being
you
my
kind
wife.
of.
Hey, thanks for hanging with me. So yeah, we just went to Big Bear Lake, and there was a little bar there. It's like there for a long time, something tavern, but they do karaoke. And during the day, I noticed that they do karaoke, and I was like, I'll be back tonight. And I walked back at
You
8
pointed
o'clock.
at the bartender
Yeah.
like, I'm coming back,
Come back for your
motherfucker.
bitch ass. And I went and played some good songs, but I did Mr. Brightside because there was a bachelorette party, and they just went wild. I almost left Kim for them. Left her in Big Bear.
I almost left her for a group of women.
Yeah, a group of women that lost it over Mr. Brightside. Sweet Caroline, just to be a cracker.
That's
You
a good
gotta-
one. That's
yeah.
a good one.
It gets people going.
Cracker.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, it gets everybody going.
Yeah. Sweet Caroline.
All the light skinned people get turned
Yeah.
up to that
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Little Darren Till action.
Mhm. So yeah, it's I like to do songs that I can actually try to like not miss a beat.
Right.
But there's songs that I would want to do, but I haven't done karaoke in a while.
There was only one time that I can ever remember I did karaoke, and the reason I jumped and like started was this guy was singing a song I liked and he was fucking ruining it.
Oh yeah.
So I got upset and like not really upset. I wasn't like mad at him, but I was like, I'm gonna go save this dude because he's pissing me off. He's ruining this song. So I went up there and like hugged him and took the mic away from him and just started singing. He was all about it. He was trying to like move into it. And
He likes to
move his-
duet,
I was
okay.
like, you're just ruining my song, dude. But I like to sing too, but I'm more of like the car singer. I do all that stuff. I don't really go to bars that much. It's fucking. I don't go. It's so
Karaoke
much-
is fun because the first time I ever did karaoke, it was like I had to tell myself like I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone, and then like me and you were talking about that yesterday, Lance. Like getting out of your comfort zone is the best way to grow as a character, as a person, and so yeah. So one time I just told myself, this isn't something I would normally do, and I don't feel comfortable doing it, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. Like
Sometimes
why not?
that's the right reason to do it.
Yeah,
and like,
exactly.
I talk to Dominic about that all the time because Dominic, if he gets slightly uncomfortable with anything, he has a major meltdown. So I have to like be there with him and be like, hey. I was like, tough guys aren't the guys that can win in a fight. Tough guys are the people that
are
afraid
okay
of
to feel vulnerable and look vulnerable sometimes.
Tough guys are the ones who are afraid of something and they do it anyway.
Yeah, you
they
gotta-
go through it.
You
Even
got to
in
challenge your
jiu-jitsu,
anxieties. Yeah, exactly.
When I
like,
did stand
you-
up, sorry.
you did
No, go
that.
ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, one thing you always say is, like, put yourself in a situation that you're not comfortable with, and
That growth
start
happens.
getting better at it. It's like, Yeah, like
and then you get comfortable in that situation that you were
Exactly.
uncomfortable with, and
Yeah.
then you're just like a different person.
Yeah,
Totally different person.
Even if you don't get comfortable with it, the fact that you did it is it makes you feel better because you're like, now I know I can. Because there's times where we all know those people that have never really grown. They take pride in being. I've been the same forever, dog. Like I've been the same dude. And you're like, that sucks because it's been like fucking 15 years.
Yeah.
You're the same person. You do the same
10
things.
to 35.
You
Okay.
kick it with the same people. You go to the same places. You stay away from the same things after 10, 15 years. Like you gotta. That's not good for you. It's not a good thing. But what that is, that's fear. That's fear of either the reason you don't want to get outside of your comfort zone is either A, you don't want to be completely let down, or you don't want to be looked at as a fool. There's some fear there of something you don't want to do. So you have to go there. I mean, it's what we talked about earlier about like losing. Like you've told me, actually, it was like 3 weeks ago or something, Noah. You told me I brought up Tatiana Suarez, and it was like you were like, oh yeah, she beat me in a wrestling match when I was 12.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that was the case. I didn't need to hear that.
Oh,
but
she would smash
sometimes,
everybody, yeah.
But it's like one of those things where it's like, look at where she is now, and it's the kind of thing where she was a phenom wrestler, and it's like, did you fucking melt down after that? Did you go down a path,
Or did
hate
you learn?
yourself? You were like, well, I'm sure you learned some lessons from that, and you're
I
like,
just cried. I cried the rest of the day. I
what's
lost
your
it.
dad say
It's
about
okay.
that?
He called me a bitch, probably.
Did he really?
No, I don't know. I don't remember specifically. Yeah, no, I don't know. She whooped my teammate the same day that was a much better wrestler than I was. Red Alacron, he's a world champion black belt right now too.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out Red, Richard Alacron. She beat me and Red the same day. She beat me worse, I think, but we just like fuck. Okay, cool. So she was tough.
She's a beast.
And I've had her on the show before. That's why I brought her up and what you told me. And it was like so interesting to have her on because she's so guarded. Like she doesn't want to open up. She's very nervous. And this was 5 years ago, so I'm not saying that's how she is now. Who knows now? I don't really. Honestly, it was like a weird, awkward kind of conversation that I'm not really interested in to have her back on. I've never asked her, and we have mutual friends and stuff. She's super cool. She was actually really nice to my fiance when we hung out at a birthday party after that. There was a mutual friend's birthday party. So nothing negative about her. It's just that she's so closed off that I'm like, I don't really want to have people on that don't want to talk. Like that's what we do here. We open up and we throw our shit in the pile here and we have that conversation. But other than that, like she's so interesting of a person to have come across just with all of that stuff. Like just being a female wrestler in the late 90s and she had cancer. She went to she was in the fucking Olympics. Like she was that was a big deal. So there's those people you meet. They're just so interesting on that level, and they were just born and raised to be this competition machine, and you wonder, well, I want to get inside that mind and see what's up. And she's so guarded that I'm like, okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
You are the competitor.
She's always been like that though. Since we were kids, she was at tournaments and stuff. There wasn't a whole lot of socializing. She would go smash, and that was it. And she was down. I mean, we were young. I didn't know her much in high school and stuff. But as kids, you'd see her and you just know like, oh. And then at that time, there wasn't a lot of girls wrestling too. So she just wrestled with the boys. And then later on, they started developing like girls teams and girls CIF and girls state. She dominated all of it. So I knew she was going to be catapulted. I think maybe she's plagued with injury right now. I'm not sure, but if she was more active, she'd be the champ.
Yeah,
so.
she's been out for like 3 years now at this point. Now I've heard she's moving up to flyweight, so that's interesting too. Because now she was 2 steps away from a championship fight.
I think that one of the things she's huge for 115. So I think
very long, right?
Yeah, so I think it might be better at 25. But when people switch weight classes, you never know.
I wanted to ask you, George, because this is something that sort of you and I have in common, is the whole stepdad thing. Because you're raising 2 boys that you didn't physically father, but you've become the dad. So when you first came around, was that just like, did you jump right into it, or was it one of those things where you figured you were going to be just sort of on the outside of that?
Yeah, we kind of eased our way into it for sure, because like at the time their dad was still in the picture,
right?
And so like for like the first year or so, they used to call me Buddy. Like that was my name, like they.
That's still pretty. That's a nice little.
Yeah.
Even though for the scenario, that's a nice term of endearment.
Yeah,
it could have been asshole.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
And so eventually, when me and Lauren got serious, and like got engaged and all that, like we gave him the option, like, do you want to call him Dad? And they.
How long
took to it right
I don't know
away.
if this is too much. If I don't know if you're comfortable getting there, but how long was the dad around and all that, or is he not around, or
like? No, he's not really around. Like he went off and like got into drugs and
That's
all that shit. But now he's back around. He had like a bad accident, so now his mom's taking care of him.
Yeah.
So they're really close to their grandma, so they still go over and hang out, and they see him, but he's not
an influence on them the way you are.
Yeah, exactly. And like the youngest one, Noah, he was like a year and a half when I came in the picture. So to him, I've always been his dad.
The one.
Like I think a couple of years ago, we had to get passports we were going on a Canada trip, and he needed his dad's signature to get, all that stuff, whatever. And Noah's like, well, why can't Dad just sign it? And it's like,
you have to explain that. It's awkward. Yeah.
Awkward conversation.
And he finally figured it out, and like they see it, but like, for them, like, even recently, Father's Day just passed, and like they wanted nothing to do with.
You're the man. You're the man.
Yeah. Dominic fucking hates his father. Like the guy. He says terrible things about him, and like that might seem like I put all this in his head, but it's just he's hurt. Like he just feels like this guy wasn't around. This guy doesn't want me. This guy. He never says the doesn't want me thing, but I'm sure that comes up every now and then.
I'm sure they feel it.
Yeah. It's a subconscious thing where he's not aware of it, but that's the truth. And like so. It's an interesting thing to meet someone else, because it's like, you have that thing where you're like, what it's like, those early days where you're like, hey, I'm just here to help, and then you're like, no shit, I'm the guy, I'm doing all this, and they have the
big responsibility when you step into that, like.
And then they have the blood in them that it's not your blood, so they got stuff going on that you can't really relate to because it's not your DNA, it's somebody else's. So like there's certain things they do where you're like, what the fuck is that? Like, where did that? Oh yeah, that's right. There might be some DNA stuff with his father, some genetic information that we're not really aware of, and it is a big deal. And you just show up and you're like, oh fuck, they have this. And like for me, I didn't have the buddy phase, but I had the Lance phase where I was like, I was Lance, I was the new guy, and the father was sort of on his way out when I came in. He was getting into some shit. I heard a lot of stories from Rocio about how he would tell Dominic like when she went to go pick him up, because he would just see him every other weekend, and he would like cut hair and did like tattoos or something all under the table, because he didn't want to get in the system, because he owed Rocio like tens of thousands of dollars like in child support. And Rocio's was like, you know what, he's like a burnout loser, like he doesn't want to be part of this, so I'm not going to chase him through the courts to get money, like we'll just do our own thing. So when I came so you know that, right?
We had to go, I was there when we had to go through the courts and get custody of them and stuff, and it wasn't him fighting for their custody, it was the grandma. So
that's
she was kind of just dragging him along to try to get custody, and like
as a pawn kind of.
So
well, just sort of like trying to make him do the right thing, like being an ultimate mom.
And
like,
she's the queen, and this is.
Yeah.
But this is the dad.
And we have a very different thing where like Dominic's grandma passed away, so the father's mom passed away, and she was the closest to Dominic. So Dominic, she passed away when he was like 5, and that fucking wrecked him psychologically, and it was big trauma to him. The dad is really quiet. He doesn't really talk, or his grandpa. So Dominic's grandpa, really quiet, doesn't really talk that much. So he never really made a big fuss out of the whole thing. He was just kind of fine with it. And I thought that was weird. Like, you just cool with not seeing your grandson, but whatever. He was always very nice, but he didn't push very hard. So
didn't care that much.
No, and now when the family, like at this point, because Dominic's aunts, he has like 3 aunts, they're sisters of his father. And they will invite Dominic to stuff, and we take him. Or Rocio does. I don't really go to that stuff because I'm like, I usually it's weird. It always ends up on a day where I'm doing a podcast, which is so weird. There's something weird about that. But she's taking him over to a few like family parties, and he goes over there and has a great time because he's hanging out with his cousins. And Rocio gets like the royal treatment over there because they're just like they know what their brother's cool. Like. They know they don't. There's no beef. They don't give her any shit. If anything, she gets put on a pedestal. Like, wow, you did all this without him. And they say a bunch. They've met me like once, and they I get a lot of praise from them too through her. And it's just one of those things where it's a weird world, like 'cause I grew up with both parents. Like, my parents were rough with me, but they were always there. So I don't. When I see other kids that didn't have a dad or didn't have a mom, I always felt sympathetic towards that because it's like I have a friend that we all know that's kind of a wild animal. I'll tell you later who it is. I don't know if he wants to get put on, but it's just a wild animal. He grew up without a dad, and he's been in and out of jail a couple times, and he's not like hood. He's not like a hood guy. He just loses control whenever any authority figure tries to lay a trip on him, he goes nuts, and he feels like he has to get physical to be a tough man. So, and I used to think he was just a shithead, and he was a really intelligent guy, and I just was like, why is he such a shithead? And it's like, well, he didn't have a dad there to check him.
Makes sense.
His mom was afraid of him at like 10 years old because he was bigger than
he could beat her up.
Well, he would never beat her up, but
he could. I
think it was the fear.
Physically, he could.
I don't know. It was that? I think it was my thing is I think she was like, if I hit him, nothing's gonna happen. He's a big ass kid. He's not gonna get hurt. So hitting him isn't gonna fix anything.
Right. Okay.
Telling him what to do isn't gonna fix anything. So she just tried to be the best mom possible, and he got a lot of freedoms other people didn't get. And so with that comes, oh well, I can do whatever I want then, right? And there's no punishment. There's no effect to this, to whatever I did. And so I feel that, and so it's so important for people to show up and try to be that thing, because you see what happens when they don't have the dad. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like I always thought it was like, oh, it's a big deal, where I'm getting this pat on the back, and it's so much fucking work when it's not your blood. When there's these little, and I came in at 4. Like I get a lot of these weird phantom guilt trips, and they're not even real. They're so stupid, but it's like, man, I wish I was around earlier. I wish I would have had him at 1. I wish I was the father. And it's stuff that doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? But it's real, because you're like, all of Dom's little crazy twitches and little problems, I'm like, if I had him at 1, he wouldn't have gotten to that point. I could have fixed this. And so there's all that other world where it's not even real. I'm not saying anyone should think that. Those are the weird fucked up thoughts that come in when you're replacing and you love someone so much. You're just like, what the fuck, man? Like, why couldn't I have come around a year earlier? But it's part of your path. You met everybody at the right time. Those people that come around, people that are here right now.
Everything is designed, brother.
It's all a part of the design, part of the path, and it's just like, that's fucking wild when you sit back. And so again, reconnecting with you is always interesting, because I knew that about you. You told me this, and I was like, okay, almost like this. I got another one here. It's my brother. You know what it's like, because you told me there's times where Noah goes, he has some flip out moments at home, and it's like, it's different when you know how you would have done things earlier, or how your parents would have dealt with this and all that, and it's like, well, it's a different scenario here. You got to kind of watch what you do.
Yeah, it's a trip for sure. Like raising kids, like
it's a trip on its own.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and with my parents, like, they're awesome. Like, grew up in a very loving family, provided everything, and had no complaints on that, but they were always working. So I was always just home alone with my brother and sister, so we don't have like that personal connection like Noah was talking about earlier with his dad. Like, they're blue collar, like working, but we never had that emotional connect. Like, I couldn't go and talk to them.
It was like, they're my guide, and they're my North Star, but they're not my best friend.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a balance. I think there's always something.
Could be worse.
It could be a lot worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, now I get to work from home and stuff. I pick up the kids every day, bring them here to train, and get them home, do their homework and all that stuff. So it's like, I'm there
all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
that's the thing is,
it's hard, dude.
You kind of see, because I complain about my dad a lot, but you kind of see what happens when you become a dad, and you're like, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot. I mean, nowadays it's different than when it was when we were growing up, and so it's a different pressure. It's a different thing that's hard to get over now, and it's a lot more chill now being a dad, with being able to be not the hard ass tough guy anymore. Because when I was growing up, I think my dad felt like he had to be like, he had to be the tough guy, because he didn't know anything else, which was weird, because he had 2 sisters. So I always felt, and his mom is like, my grandma's like the nicest lady in the world. So I was always like, why did you become such a douchebag and such an asshole? I don't get it. And I'm sure what it was is he had 3 sons, and he had this idea of what he wanted from all 3 of us, and we were not what he wanted. We weren't the soldier little fucking hyper athletes he wanted. We were great athletes, but I think our mentality was like, I always felt like I was a musician who was forced into being an athlete. Like, he was just like, there's no music. I don't want anything. I shouldn't say no music. We listen to music, but there was no instruments in the house. So like, now that I have kids, Dominic has an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar. We have the electronic drum set that fucking Kyle was destroying.
It was funny. I was over at Lance's the other day, and I was having a grand old time.
You could spend hours on that.
Oh my god, I'll get lost for the whole night. But I mean, I don't even remember the point I was trying to make. But the point I was trying to make was
how good looking I am, and yeah, that's what it was. No, but
And yeah, you are.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. We'll kiss later. But I think what I was getting. Maybe if I say it again, you'll kind of get it. But it was just having instruments around. If that's a thing that you felt like you were lacking, you obviously want the best for your kids. So you're like, hey, this is what you. Because I want an artistic family. I want us all to be vibing together. Real quick, you've seen us like where we're all in the living room and we're all singing and dancing and shit. That's what I want. I want us all in harmony.
So the point I was making was like I was having a great time smashing those electric drums, and then Lance was like, Dominic wanted it, but he doesn't even really use it anymore. And I'm like, well, hold up. Just leave it in here. Leave it in his room. And when he turns 15, 16, he might end up really gravitating towards that electric drum set. Yeah. But just give it some time. That was the point I was trying to make.
That because I've been told when I got him a guitar. Like Dominic was like, "Oh, I want a guitar, Dad," because he wants to be Mick from Slipknot, the lead. Well, one of the lead. There's like 2 lead guitar players, and he's like, "That's what I'm gonna be," because he's scary looking. He's a big guy. Because Dom wants to be a big guy because he's a little guy. So he's got that whole thing, the little chip on his shoulder, and he's like, "I want to be a big guy one day. I want to play guitar for Slipknot. It's his favorite band." And that was totally not me forcing it down his throat. That was like me. I waited like 2 or 3 years to even play it around him because I'm like, I don't know, this is kind of heavy for a fucking 5-year-old, you know. And then when he heard it, I just got him into it because I'm like, he's aggressive. He's hyper. I'm like, that's what this is, you know. And so he got into it, and he really likes it. He wanted to be Mick, and so he had been telling me I want a guitar, and like Dominic is so specific with what he wants. Like you can't get him a guitar that, like a Fender white and red Fender. He'd be like, oh, even if you love guitar, he'd look at it like
he wants a metal looking guitar.
That's cool. Thank you. And like he's not like self-aware like that. Like you're making people feel bad, dude. Like they did something nice for you. He doesn't, and that's something that it's hard to teach someone appreciation when they have, you know, a neurological issue. So I don't, you know, I've been upset about that, but I'm like, whatever. I was like, I'll do my best. I'll go look. So I found him this black Ibanez guitar that looked metal. It was cool. It was actually a smaller guitar. I don't know the name of it. It had a smaller neck, so it was built for smaller kids. But it's still like a full guitar. Like you can play it, like, you know, no problem. So I bought him this guitar, and he was like, yeah, he's all excited. And then he straps it on. I got him an amp. He plugs it in, and he starts fucking around. And he's just like, "This doesn't. It doesn't sound like Slipknot." And he was pissed. He was just like, and he just was done with it because it didn't sound like a Slipknot song. I'm like, Dom, I was like, you like Mick, right? He's like, yeah. Mick started playing when he was your age. That's why he's good as an adult. He didn't just pick it up and he's just fucking wailing. And to be honest, Mick's not even like an amazing guitar player. Like, it's just one of those things. That's what he hears. That's what he wants to be. So I was talking to friends who have guitars and stuff who play guitar when they're his age, and they were like, dude, none of us just got right into it. We all put it down and circled around to it a year or two later, or when in high school when it's cool to be the kid who play guitar, and girls like the guy who plays guitar, and the girls like the guy who can sing. All of a sudden that's motivation, and now all of a sudden, I have one of those in the you know, in a closet. So I was annoyed that he didn't want to play the drum set because it's so easy. It's not like you don't have to play, like you don't have to learn how to play a drum set in the sense that, you know, there's a snare. There's definite way to learn, but it's so like just fun to hit things, you know, even if you just hit them as a kid. So it's weird. It's not that I'm upset. I just get weirded out that he doesn't want to fuck around with it. I'm like, it's so fun.
Just play with it.
But at the same time, I'm aware of what happens when you push your kids into your dream and not theirs. When you force your kids into doing something that is your thing, your path, your thing that you didn't have. So I'm like, hey, it's there whenever you want it.
And that's where my thought came in, where it was like, wait till he's like maybe in high school and he might actually like develop a true like deep seated like passion, and he might be like, okay, let me really fuck around with this electronic drum set and see what it does for me, you know.
To be honest, I don't even care if he likes it ever. I like it. I like it, and Rose likes it.
And I bought it, and it's there.
People come over to play it, so it was just more like, oh man, it was cool that he was so into it before we got it, and then we got it, and he's like. I figured out a way to hook it up to where he can like listen to himself playing to a song and all that, and that's cool. But I would have to be there setting all that up. So for him to just get on and fuck around, he's not really into it. He's like, nah. So I'm like, all right, whatever. But it really doesn't matter if he gets into it. I don't give a fuck. I mean, the fact is we have instruments in the house now, so there'll never be a time where, and like Rose is so much more like me. Rose wants to sing all day long. She wants to play her little guitar. Rose, if we go into Dominic's room, my daughter's 2. Rose will like go in there and go, Daddy, I want to play drums, because I have to pick her up and sit her on the throne, you know. So as long as I get her up there, she's like, good, you know, I'm good, leave me alone. And she just start playing, and it's fun, man. It's really cool, and it's just interesting to see how that worked out. You know, that I can actually understand. That's my blood. She's like, yeah, she's like me. She wants to perform. She wants to sing. She wants to get wild. When I was young, it was kind of like my dad didn't want to hear any of that. He didn't want to hear his kids singing. He's like, fucking gay.
And that's so crazy because he's probably repressing that part of himself.
Of
as
course,
well.
there was that's on his shadow side. That's part of his anema, the side on this feminine side that's tarnished in some way. And I was never close to my parents in the sense that I knew that much about them because my dad would never open up. He had all that was closed off, so there was never a chance to understand that about him. And I've figured a lot about him as an adult without even speaking to him. Like I learned a lot about. I'm like, now I get why he did this. I understand more about him. And you were talking about empathy earlier, Noah. That's a big deal, especially for men to have some kind of empathy because you start to understand a lot more about life if you can access that part of yourself, the empathetic side, the feminine side, or whatever. It's there. You don't have to be walking around with a pink boa to understand your feminine 100%. Side, but you can balance yourself out by just going the route of even empathy. That's a feminine trait, to have some sort of empathy for other people, to be accepting of other people's ways and
struggles
what they're into.
And adversities.
You have to understand that's I mean, you can be closed off all your life if you want to do that. It's going to be very rough. There are going to be times in your life where God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, will test you, and they'll put these situations that make you really uncomfortable. And if you're not willing to open up and try something, you're just going to be bumping your head on the same thing over and over and not learning that lesson. And that's kind of where my parents are. My parents are still the same way they were 15 years ago, and they're kind of, I wouldn't say outcasts, but they're sort of outcasts because they're in their own little world where they still believe these same things and they've really grown out of that.
But to tell anybody that they're the same that they were 15 years ago, it's not a good thing.
No one tells them that. This is my opinion,
Yeah, like
I don't think anyone's going up to him like, hey, dude, by the way, I don't know, I just want to say this. You're the same as you were in 1998.
No, but even if you're observing it from the outside, like how did 15 years pass and you're still that same exact person?
It's sad. Like that's where my empathy for them comes. Just like, man, you guys, like, you don't really know the other. Like you had 20 years to figure this out, and you don't have kids in the house anymore. There's a lot of freedom, of time. I understand the struggle of having 3 boys and trying to keep them on that schedule of going to practices all the time, and something goes wrong and you're not the kind of dad that understands people. You're like, I don't want to hear your bullshit. Just fucking just get in the car,
But you had a decade. But you had a decade to examine yourself, and you haven't.
And so that's where I get to the point where I feel I've come around where I actually feel empathetic for them, but I don't feel like they've done any work for me to go try to help them out or try to work on that. I'm like, I have my own thing going on. I have enough shit going on in my family, and I really do feel like this is my kids, my Alicia and Paul now, like that's my family, the people, and then the extended friends, the people that I start having around. Like I like hosting fights at my house, having people over. Just in my house, I don't even have a house. I live in a fucking apartment.
It's a beautiful apartment, by the way, and it's a beautiful family, by the way, and I felt very welcomed, and it was a very lovely time.
I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Rocio will love that you said that, and you can say it again as many times as you want to. Thank you. No, but I just like hosting in those situations because I like to be the one that's making sure everyone has a good time, and you have people over that are like just having a great time, good people, and you're like, this is what it was supposed to be. I look back when I was a little kid, I'm like, this is what it was supposed. This is not even what I shouldn't say that. This is what it was supposed to be for me. Like this is what I wanted. This is what I was looking for, and so it's really important for me to just even having instruments around. What it tells me is we're gonna all like. There's times where Dom will grab a guitar. I grab, like I'll start singing or I'll kind of tap on things, and we have like a little musical moment where the whole family's doing something, and that's like, that's so cool because we never would have done that growing up. Yeah. The only thing we ever did was play at a park, and after a while it was like we'd sneak away from Dad because we're like, dude, he's gonna get like Dad doesn't want to just play, he wants to win and be violently, dominant. So we just sneak away. Like Dad's, driving down the lane, going for a layup and put his knee out and fucking railing me, and I'm 10, and I'm like, I don't want to play anymore.
Knee to the chest and dropping me in the paint.
So you just get that, and you're like, why would I want to be here? And I always think about that because I start getting loud about stuff around Dominic, and I'm like, damn, I just heard my dad's voice. Like, this is fucked up, man.
But that's super important. That's super important that you're able to stand outside of yourself and see it and be like, okay, chill out because I see what I'm doing right now. I'm doing the same thing that I got, and it's like, so that's something, you're not you guys aren't dads yet, but I'm not. But
no, when you do have kids, it's that's something that might pop up, and it sounds like you had a great relationship with your dad, but there are going to be some blind spots that come up, some shit that comes up where you're like, wow, I didn't even know. I never thought I would do that, and it's just because when you're in the moment, you're in the moment, you react, and it's just part of you. It's in
crazy.
It's your DNA.
You start talking like your parents or your dads, or probably more like your dad than your mom. But you start I start saying the same jokes or start saying things. I'm like, oh shit.
That was my dad. That was straight up my dad.
Yeah,
that was
like,
straight up my
I
dad.
use the same sayings he
I
would
was gonna say
say.
the phrases.
Yeah,
where
the
you're
same
like,
phrases
what?
and shit.
When did I start this?
yeah.
And
No,
how do I?
that's not even me. That's my dad.
How do I get
Am
out?
I him? Am I him?
When was I born? In 1956. So some of the jokes are like, yeah.
The old school dad jokes.
Yep, Kim hears them all the time. So.
Yeah.
Where'd you meet Kim?
I met her a while ago through mutual friends. I don't really remember probably like 2015 or 2016 or something. So
Was she familiar with the BJJ world and like what it encompasses?
yeah, she I met her through mutual fighter friends.
Okay.
So she was dating another guy at the time.
Came in with the swoop move. Look
Yeah,
at you old
yeah.
sailor, you.
Yeah, so
You healthy dog.
Yeah, so
OMW
our friends, they were also
TFYB.
they were also fighters. The mutual friends we had were also fighters. So she doesn't know anything about jiu-jitsu or fighting or anything. I'll hold mitts for her sometimes, but
You guys got into an octagon and battled for her?
Yeah.
Wow, that's romantic.
yeah, we had to fight for her honor. No, it was fair game. They weren't together anymore,
Yeah.
so I don't think you can really say fair game like when you're talking about your wife.
Right, you don't
Yeah.
make her sound
Yeah.
like
I know what you
prey.
mean, though.
Dibs.
At the time, you're
Yeah.
like, hey, listen, you guys
Called
are,
dibs, and it was cool.
She's not
she's gonna
prey.
ring.
She helped me develop, and I helped her develop.
Yeah, I gave her a run at the champ. You know what I mean?
I'm going to try you out, babe.
Yeah.
See
Let's
if you
see
can
how
join
far
the
you can
Tillis
push
team.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you make me hit that next level?
Yeah.
So what are your like ultimate plans for the academy? Like, do you plan on expanding, or is this kind of like your home base and you like it and you staying here? Or do you think that far ahead?
Oh no, yeah, I've been trying to expand for a long time. Kind of in a weird spot economically, where the prices are just so expensive.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and they've gone up ridiculous. And I try to be fair with pricing and stuff like that, and trying to look. I've looked forever, looking at a different spot. Ideally, I'd want a bigger spot. I wouldn't want to run multiple gyms by myself. Affiliations and stuff like would be cool. But yeah.
At this time, if I interrupt, I'm sorry.
No,
but
you're good. Go
do you employ anybody under you?
Through the IRS, no.
Okay.
I don't.
Cool.
So-
Perfect
so,
answer.
Yeah. So there's volunteers at the gym
Yes.
who have their own classes
Yes.
and teach. Like
Okay.
Jorge Costa, who's 13-1 as a professional boxer. He teaches the boxing. We have a wrestling coach, Justin. A few of the black belts will teach a couple times a week. We have Little Rich teaches a fundamentals class. So I still teach about 85 to 90% of the jiu-jitsu classes.
But you do have a little bit of your bottom line going towards people that help support you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah. So there's got to take care of that, and then but you just look at like business point of it. It
Yep.
doesn't make sense with the way prices have gone up commercially. Residential prices are insane right now too, but commercial prices going into like a nice big warehouse would be ideal, but rents are like $11,000 to $12,000 a month. So it's insane. It doesn't, for the footage you're getting extra, doesn't make up for the price increase. So until it makes sense, I'm going to try to stay here. I like this spot. We've been here since the beginning. So I'm adding more classes and stuff to make up for the growth that the gym is going.
Right.
Like the gym is definitely growing. We're out of
Good
that.
problems to have.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's still in recovery from COVID, I think, but I think we're out of it. But now it's growing.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not one problem, it's the next with recession and stuff like that. So, yeah, if the gym's going to continue to grow, we're going to stay in this spot, and I'm going to have more classes and different things to deal with that until it'll make financial sense to get a bigger spot.
And that's
So-
why now it's so important to continue the branding part of it,
Mhm.
because you're like, I'm just going to grow the brand then, because it's like you can't help the external factors that's there. I mean, that's what's going on in the
Yeah.
country. That's a not a youth thing. So at this point, it's just like, let me focus on building the brand,
Yeah.
growing
Let
the team.
that Cerberus logo.
Yep.
I want everybody and anybody to know what that Cerberus logo means.
Yeah,
you know?
we'll put a billboard on. What are your billboard with that
yes.
bad boy?
Yes. Exactly.
You get some creep to talk about it on a podcast. There's several options
Yeah,
you have to
exactly.
promote the podcast.
I'm expecting after this airs, we're gonna have people just knocking down the door.
You're going to have one more person.
It's
show
Sunday.
up.
We're closed.
People are going to be wanting to come in and train.
The 4 people that listen to this show, they're, they're going to send an email. So get ready to have your inbox explode. Big guy.
Yeah. Formulate your replies right now.
It would be cool. I mean, how many guys do you have on the MMA team? Or do you even consider it a team at this point?
Well, so I'll give you a little history about our MMA stuff. I like MMA. MMA fighters are the most entitled people on earth, right? Yeah. So it's.
Wait, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I used to.
He was.
Yeah,
Kyle.
I used to run. I used to run like an MMA program, right? So I'd have practices a couple times a week. We'd do sparring. Like I was really trying to, and we had a lot of amateurs. I had pros, but they're just so entitled. Hey, can you hold mitts for me at 4? And then hey, can you give me some rolling tonight at 10? Can you do this? And then they'll, at the drop of a hat, they'll switch teams or they'll dip out or they, you know.
And it's like, no, I don't want to do that for you at this time because I have a class that I'm teaching.
Well, no, I would though. I would meet up with a guy and help him cut weight, or I'd run with him, or I'd go drill jiu-jitsu with him at 10 p.m. or do different work midday when I'm supposed to be doing private lessons. And private lessons, that's how I make any money. So and I start to realize like the trend of these young men. So who wants to be an aspiring MMA fighter? The 20-year-old athletic kid. The kids are, you're losing money. So I didn't want to think about my club as like such a
prestigious.
Just like it's not all about money. It's not. Right. I have the best quality for the cheapest price. Right. Mm. And I've always and I don't
quality at a fair price.
Yeah, and I don't want to sell myself short, but we are very affordable because I grew up in South Whittier, where we're lower middle class area. I'm not gonna be the guy that's like, all right, $4.99 down and then $200 a month. I try to make it affordable for our neighborhood. It's a community gym.
That's super commendable.
Yeah,
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. And
no, for real. Yeah. For real.
But the thing is, you end up losing money with fighters because they're really needy, and then they can't pay you. I never got paid for any usually you do a 10% cut when they fight, but my pros that fought were fighting such low level shows for a while, and they all are for a long time, that I never even asked for anything like that because it was $80 or something.
Take your purse,
yeah. They need it.
Go have lunch, brother.
Exactly. So there's things like that so what I did was I just stopped the MMA program altogether because if they were gonna fight, they usually weren't paying. They were entitled little pricks, and they were having a hard time being loyal because they would jump to any shiny thing. There was a team that had more 45ers than them to spar with than they were training over there, or what have you, know. So I dropped the MMA program and I just focused on what I really enjoy is the jiu-jitsu program. There's a striking program, there's a wrestling program, there's a kickboxing program. Any facet you need to be a MMA fighter, but it's just all separated. And the gym blew up after that, where it was not, all my attention wasn't towards training fighters and stuff. I was, now the classes were getting a little bit bigger. I could put more energy into growing jiu-jitsu and like I said, I have people as young as 4 all the way up into their 60s that train, and it's the effort it goes there opposed to trying to help these guys win an amateur fight. So now what I made it was guys approach me and they want to fight. I have one sparring day on Thursdays, and if they ever want to fight, I'll do more, but they have to go to all the classes. Like they have to be going to the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, they have to be going to the striking classes, then they have to be sparring, and then you start to see that after a while. Then it's like really to mold them into getting amateur fight ready doesn't take very long if they're already training, So
it's interesting because I follow your Instagram and I see a lot of the it's from, like you said, from kids up to MMA fighters. You get in a lot of wins and gold medals and silver medals for being a smaller camp, so to speak. And that's something that I think is a feather in your cap as well. And I talked to Chris Coley and I asked him about you, just kind of getting more background information. The way he described you was that there's no fluff. He said you're a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach who doesn't teach fluff, and that it's the best technique you're going to get anywhere around Southern California. What he meant, and then he elaborated on it, but he was basically saying that you're not going to be putting on these cute little shows. It's like, and he said that earlier you said your Jiu-Jitsu is catered towards MMA, like it's that style, and that's what he said.
Practical Jiu-Jitsu.
It's very practical Jiu-Jitsu it's not a lot of silliness, but it's going to get you a win or it's going to get you, top technique. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I've trained with Chris. quite a bit over at the Fight Academy. And like you said earlier, MMA is a small community, so we've seen each other for years. And then I got a chance to train with him. He's a great fighter, really good kickboxer. So his specialty, being kickboxing, is just that. It's his specialty, and it's really good kickboxing. So it's kind of cool. I remember being at Fight Academy and we're sparring, and bam, got a head kicked. I was like, oh, thanks, dude. You know, so.
I watched a lot of his fights just on the internet, and it looks like, because I didn't know that many people that were into Muay Thai until I met Chris Sykes, who trained at Millennia and around that area, and so that was my first sort of step into that world, and he's the one who explained to me what smokers were, and then after getting through a few more people, I talked to Chris, and I saw some of his stuff. And I was just like, holy shit, because you see because you know Muay Thai isn't the most popular thing in America to see a lot of clips on it.
Like real Muay Thai, no, because I think it's brutal and a lot of people don't do it, you know.
And then you see it and you're like, holy shit, you know, and you talk to these guys who are super nice guys to you, and you think they're going to be these monsters when you see their videos, and he's been a super nice guy to me.
Yeah.
And,
cool. But he's kicking down banana trees.
I don't know. Never asked him.
No, I was just,
it might be.
It was just a joke about MMA.
Toughing out those shins. Like,
Exactly. It's just a joke. Kicking down banana trees.
That would hurt.
Oh, a lot. And then, but then you imagine somebody who's kicking down banana trees. Do I want to fight him? Probably not.
No
I probably
way.
don't want to fight that guy.
I wouldn't.
So this might kind of a weird question, but I was curious. So you said when you're obviously when you're really young that you had like a vision issue. Is that something that's always been around, or?
Oh yeah.
Because you have very distinct. I mean, I don't mean not to be a dick, but you have a distinct set of glasses are very
Bottle
noticeable
cap.
about you when you see you right away.
Yeah.
Did you get like picked on when you were younger for that stuff when you were really young?
The picked on, no, not really. I mean, people
Make
tease.
comments.
Yeah, I've been training for forever, so people knew that. I didn't really deal with too many bullies or anything other than like maybe kindergarten, first grade or something.
Mhm.
But
Because you could handle the bullies.
yeah, and I never really had to. But it's like the rumor mill, you know, all this guy trains and stuff like that. So it was cool. But no, to answer your question, my vision has been bad since I was born. But we didn't know until kindergarten. I had to repeat kindergarten. That's when they tested my eyes and stuff like that. It was my birthday too, but they tested my eyes and they realized I had really bad vision. So whenever we were talking about the California State Athletic Commission got approved in 2008, and so there's a bunch of tests before, like doing smokers and stuff like that. You don't need to take blood tests or anything. It's fucking wild. But
There's no commission.
Yeah, exactly. So once I became a commissioned pro, you have to do an eye test, a blood test, an EKG, MRI, all that stuff, right? So I would always barely pass my eye test. Like a lot of times I would study the test with my glasses on and try to remember them, and then so I could pass it. And they'd be like, oh, I barely passed now. So that was hard. My last fight, I fought Jalen Turner, and he's solid. I think he won his last like 6 in the UFC.
Yeah.
Good dude. But it would stylistically, if I did what I was supposed to be doing, good game plan. If I didn't do what I was supposed to be doing, absolute worst style matchup for me, because I remember he's such a good striker, and he's also really tall for lightweight. I fought at lightweight, but I'm like 5'8" and a half. I say 5'9", but I'm like 5'8". And
he's 6'3".
Yeah, he's 6'3". So
Damn.
like,
Damn,
so
big difference.
The way my vision works too is like, I have really bad eyes, but my depth perception is really screwed up. So
Okay.
So like I remember this dude hitting me, and he didn't hit like extremely hard. It's just very accurate.
Sharp.
Very accurate. His knee was, I think I got clipped with a knee. That's what put me down. But I remember like, where the fuck is this guy hitting me from? You know, like I couldn't even see it. I think I landed a punch on him, and then got confident and rushed in and got.
I'll show you, mister.
Yeah. But he was just so tall.
That was in Bellator, right?
Yeah, it was in Bellator.
Yeah.
It was so tall that he's very tall, and so that makes it even harder because of my vision to even set or land any strikes or anything like that. So it's affected things for a long time. So that was one of the big reasons why I stopped fighting. Is in the lower shows, smaller shows, I could out grapple usually anybody, and but then now I start factoring in like, now I'm going to be fighting guys that are world champion kickboxers or really good strikers.
They can also wrestle.
Yeah, that now their grappling's getting up and stuff like that, and it was hard because my depth perception in my eyes are so bad that it was just, along with the business, along with everything, I was like, man, I'm not going to regress and fight in smaller shows. I'm either going to try to fight Bellator more, and like I said, they offered me fights. They offered me a guy my height and not a great striker, and that would have been a good fight. I was so far removed from MMA that it really wasn't my plan anymore. But my eyes played a huge factor in me stop fighting.
That's why I brought up. I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Do you have some kind of like? Is there some sort of disorder, or you like would?
I got astigmatism, and my
Okay.
my vision's just it's like 600. So I'll give you an example. Everybody talks about LASIK. I just got 2 months ago. I was gonna do it this summer. I still may try, but I got a consultation for LASIK, and they said my vision is too high to do the LASIK. But what they can do is they can go up to 575 or 600, and my vision is right at 600. So it might give or take. Might not be 100% successful. Yeah, they said it'll work. My eyes will be really good where I don't have to wear glasses all the time. I just might need to wear some readers and stuff like that at night. But my vision was just really high. So my prescription is super high. So
do contacts help at all?
Yeah, I think they have contacts. I just don't like contacts, like touching and it's so hard too. Is like contacts are weird because they're like, yeah, they have to be like a certain inside out, like the bubble has to be out or something. Mm-hmm. But when I don't have my glasses on, I can't see what the fuck it is.
Yeah, well, also like astigmatism is something specific where regular contacts aren't the same. Like if you have astigmatism, there's special contacts for astigmatism.
Yeah,
different.
My little brother had astigmatism, and he just wore them. But
Yeah.
I remember when we all first got our contacts, I was like 14 or something like that. Because I just figured my vision was fine, and then I went to school. When I was a freshman, and I was sitting in the back of the class because I never fucking tried to sit anywhere near the front of the class. I was in the back of the class at like AP English or something, and I couldn't see the board anymore. I was like, fuck, I don't even know
what's going on.
I was like, dang, this is not good, because I was before that I was a pretty good student. Like I did everything well, and if you can't see what the fuck you're writing,
taking
that's kind of a
notes,
big
you don't know
deal.
what's going on.
So I told my parents, and my parents both had glasses at the time, and they were kind of thinking about, this is around the time when like contacts were becoming like a thing. So it was probably like 2001 or something. And so the whole family got contacts, except my youngest brother. Even I have a brother 2 years younger than me, so he was 12 at the time, and he got them. The funny thing is,
he didn't even need them.
No. He had astigmatism. But the funny thing was, my mom had to put my dad's and my little brother's contacts in every day. So they had to like sit on the toilet with their head up while my mom was over there trying to put it in their eye. And I'm like, and they had like a major problem with it. I had a problem for like couple days, and then I figured it out, so it was no problem for me.
To me it's just annoying. I don't know, I'd rather just throw my glasses.
Put the glasses on.
It's understandable. I mean, there was, I stopped wearing contacts probably about 3 years ago, and I wore glasses for about a year and a half, and then I just was tired of, because I have an issue with having an accessory. Like you never see me with a watch. I don't like carrying anything around in my hands or having to remember where my stuff is. I like pockets. If I get fit in my pocket, cool, but I didn't like the fact that I had these glasses I had to take care of, because I just, to be honest, I don't want to take care of them. I don't want to fucking. So that was the thing for me, and so I went back to contacts, and I mean, that's the only reason why. It's because I just feel like lazy, to be honest. Like,
that's crazy. That's crazy because I felt lazy too, and to me, my laziness leaned more to putting glasses on than to putting contacts on. Because I used to wear contacts because I was embarrassed to have to put glasses on, and I was thought like, oh, it makes my face look different and this and that. But then I just fell into my pattern of like, I'm lazy. I don't want to put contacts on. I just want to wake up, throw my glasses on, and go to school or go to work or whatever. And shout out Zenny.com because they make very super cheap, affordable frames.
Who?
Zenny.
Zenny.
Zenny.com. That's where I buy my glasses from because they're super. I'll buy like 4 pairs of glasses at a time because I'm also very reckless and careless, and I'll break glasses. So I'll buy like 4 at a time, and then like I'll break 1, 2, and I still have like the other ones like just laying on deck. So shout out to them because they make glasses affordable.
Are you still pretty close to Gabe Rudiger, former UFC fighter?
Yeah, we were on the phone the other day. He called me Friday, I think. Yeah, he called me Friday. We chop it up usually, catch up and see how things are. But yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He runs his own gym now, right?
Yeah, it's Kaiju MMA. I think it's in Thousand Oaks or something. I'm not completely sure.
I remember seeing him on the Ultimate Fighter back in the day, and he kind of got a lot of shit from the I guess, like, fans and stuff at that point. I remember him bouncing from the UFC, and then he kind of went away for a while. And I'm coming from a fan perspective, so I didn't really hear much from him. And then he sort of made a resurgence back on the scene as a coach, and he was kind of came from like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu elder sort of mentality. What is that? The door?
Yeah, door closed.
Poltergeist. We were talking about poltergeist.
It sounded like someone's putting a sign down or something.
Yeah, no. The one thing about Gabe, which a lot of people don't understand, and the show is early UFC, everybody,
This
or not
was
early
crazy. Like
yeah,
the way
the
the
show
show
was
was
crazy,
run.
and he has no reason to lie. And he would tell me, he goes, dude, they give me a hard time about not making weight. It was a last-minute fight, and they try to keep showing. The way they edit that show, I've had Nam Fan, Gabe, Joe Stevenson's a good friend of mine. I have a lot of friends that were on that show, and they'll be like, dude, the editing is such bullshit.
Well,
And
yeah.
and that's what Gabe
With
said.
any presentation,
It's-
you know.
it's-
That's what Gabe said about, because what they made it seem like was this fat ass is eating cake the day before weigh-ins, and he goes, that was three weeks prior. It was Robert Emerson's birthday. We all ate cake. You know, it was Robert Emerson's birthday. We had cake. The way they edited it was like, look at this guy.
It made me look like I couldn't even handle myself.
Yeah, and he goes that somehow that he says I should have been more responsible and made weight. But Cody Bollinger, I grew up with Cody Bollinger. He didn't make weight either. It's a really hard thing to make weight consistently on that show, and you're out of your element. No, and if people don't fight or compete to a level where they have to cut weight like that, it's really hard. And okay, the defensive, well, they all know what they signed up for. But a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people that they want to take the opportunity, but a lot of people that go to that show, they end up going down 1 or 2 weight classes when they get into the UFC or when they're fighting, because
Rashad Evans.
Yeah, exactly. And if somebody gave you the opportunity and that's your true weight class, you can't make it on a drop of a hat. It takes 5-6 weeks to get that weight down and compete. So it's a really hard thing. And the way they edited it, they made Gabe look bad, and that's just not him. He's always made weight. One of the things that people don't realize is he fought his way back to the UFC twice. So not once, but twice. So most of us don't ever make it to the UFC.
One time.
Yeah, and he fought his way back twice. He had some tough fights, but he had a lot of injuries too. So, he's my buddy. So I'm not maybe unbiased, but he's just an animal. I have stories with Gabe he's a reckless animal. So
Yeah, he was on your podcast. Something I didn't mention earlier. You kind of, was that this year or last year that you actually started the podcast?
It was this year.
Okay,
I did like
May,
4.
right?
Yeah, I did like 4 episodes, just kind of playing around with it. It was cool.
And remember it's called Dislocated Joint. You can find it on Spotify if anyone's interested. And there's an episode with Gabe Rudiger, so check that out. That's the one I listened to. I listened to some of it, to be honest. And you do that style where it's kind of like a call-in sort of thing where you have, I know Aaron was on that one. Aaron, forgot his name again. What's his name?
Arredondo.
Arredondo, yeah. I was like, he was on that.
Not
one.
Hernandez.
I don't know. I know Aaron Hernandez is, but I thought maybe some people have the same. That's a pretty common name, Aaron. It's not like so is Hernandez. So, but
It's like
yeah,
the miss and match.
So I know those two were on that one, and so that's something that's interesting. We talked to someone else who tried, started their own podcast, and just like you talked about with running a business, it's like when you actually have to get into the stuff that you're not good at or the stuff you're not aware of, you're not trained for, that's where it gets really fucking crazy. And like podcasts, I have a few friends that started them and just were like, I can't, it's not my thing.
It's at least for me, it's the routine of it. It's hard. I wanted to try it because
consistency.
The consistency is hard. Like, and I could text Joe Stevenson, or I can text guys that I've known over a long period of time that are just my buddies, but you don't realize it. Man, that's a guy fought BJ for the world title and stuff like that. But I can text him like, hey man, what would you say? What was that recipe for this? Like
BJ licked his blood off of his glove.
Yeah, exactly. So in my mind, I thought, man, a podcast would be good because I can chop it up with a lot of my buddies and stuff like that. But yeah, the consistency, and I was doing them after teaching all day. So
that's an energy drop right there. Right?
And I did one with Chris Brennan, who was like an OG UFC fighter, fought Pat Miletich twice.
Oh, damn.
He runs. And that's the shitty part is he was in Frisco, Texas, and it was a call-in, so I had to rush home after teaching. I didn't shower or anything just to catch him not that late in Texas. And we chopped it up, and then the audio just was fucked. It was like for the first 20 minutes, so I just had to scrap the episode. And it was a really good episode too because he fought Antonio McKee. Now him and Antonio McKee's sons are both top 10 in Bellator. So it was I like the aspect of talking with these guys.
But it takes a lot of energy and effort to make it happen.
Yeah,
logistics are insane. Just to get all that together, you're like, damn, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you brought up Cody Bollinger. He's another guy who's down to the show. Maybe I'll have you on with him one time just so you guys have that familiarity. But he's a real good dude. I mean, I've never met him, but we've been talking online and stuff ever since he had his kids. We have had that bond where we just kind of congratulate each other on those kind of milestones and stuff. He seems like a real good dude. I think he lives in the IE somewhere, right?
Yeah. So he was from. I think Victorville, but he's always staying around IE. So he's like high desert. I think he lives in the high desert actually. So
It's just wild when you start mentioning all these names, and I'm like, fuck. You know, obviously with Joe Daddy there, Stevenson. I mean, he was on the second. Was it the second?
I think
tough
so.
Or the first? I don't. One
I
of
think
them.
no, it was
This. I think it was the second one.
It was this. No, was it? Yeah, it was the second.
And I remember that whole season. I remember when he fought BJ and all that. And now he's at Cobra Kai. Is that the name of his gym, I think?
He has Cobra Kai Victorville. Well, Joe Stevenson was teammates with Cody Bollinger and was his coach all growing up, you know. So he's like his big brother. So Joe Stevenson and Cody are really good, really close. And they were under Ted Williams in Victorville. And then he opened
Not the batting champion.
and he opened... then he opened up his Cobra Kai Victorville, and he has a lot of fighters that have came out of there too. There's, I think Dominic Reyes was from there.
He's from that area, like Hesperia or something.
Yeah, so he trained with Joe. Joe was going to be my next guest until I kind of just, it ended up being weeks and then months in between the podcast. So I don't know if I'll do another one, but he was one that was going to be the next one.
So. You guys hear that? It sounded weird, right? There was like something.
Oh, that was my jaw.
No, it was like I thought I heard like it sounded like music. I was like, what's going on?
Like a whistle.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I don't know. Was there anything else you guys wanted to get into real quick? Because I mean,
I think I said anything about some. Well, I mean, if we can do some shout out. Wait, how long have we been recording, Lance?
how long do you think?
An hour and a half.
No, 2.5.
2.5.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if we're kind of running towards the end, I'd like to do one specific shout out. To be honest.
Okay, go ahead.
Shout out to Victor Marquez, who trains here at Tillis BJJ. That's my brother. I grew up with him at Pioneer High School, and he is my brother. And you know, we lost a little, but he's a family man now. He's got a couple kids and all that. But that is my brother for life.
It's his daughter's birthday today too. Happy birthday, Madison.
Shout out to Madison. Happy birthday, Madison. Victor Marquez, I love you. Brother.
It's getting weird. Victor Marquez, I love you.
Remember that one night where it was just you and I left at the bowling alley, and you fucking helped me to the car, and yeah, sure, I kissed you on the neck, but it was no big deal.
No big deal,
I'm
brother.
glad you didn't bring it up anywhere else.
No,
but
brotherly.
now
brotherly.
that you have kids, so I can let it out.
Brotherly.
Cool, bro.
No, shout out Victor Marquez, man. That's my brother for life.
Sure.
Anything else you want to go get out there? No, anything?
I'm good. Yeah, no, this was fun. It was good. I like the setup, so that was cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to see
fun.
some other way, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's just like everyone has their own way of doing a podcast. Everyone that I talk to.
I did. My friend Crail and Rich Gonzalez had something. It was before podcasting. It was just like this, and it was a radio show. It was called Matt Time Radio,
like internet radio kind of thing.
Yeah, it was internet radio, and it was kind of just like this. So it was cool. Yeah, same thing.
Cool. Anything you want to say, or any shout outs there, George? Just to sit there and look good. You don't have.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, it was amazing.
You're getting all horned up over there, dude.
Yeah, no.
Shout out to Roger
Like
the
piece
Thick
of meat.
Weenie. Roger the Thick Weenie.
Oh,
Shout out.
Yeah, if you guys want to go follow my dog's page, Roger _the_ Thick Weenie.
With 2 C's? Is it 2 C's or?
Talking about weird.
Yeah, I think it's 2 C's. Yeah. So I don't compete in jiu-jitsu really as much anymore, but I make my dog race. He's a competitive wiener dog, and he races. He just raced at the Wiener Schnitzel Nationals in Los Alamitos. He didn't do very well, but I fucking forced his ass.
Yeah, I actually put that down. He was at the 25th annual Wiener Schnitzel National Wiener Day race, and what was funny was we started here around that time because I remember I was sitting over here and like kind of get out there, man, like on the mat. And somebody asked you about your dog, and you're like, yeah, little fucker sucked, or he made some comment like he's in trouble. I'm not feeding him today.
Yeah,
he didn't do well at the race.
Well, actually,
no liver for you.
Yeah, we went to In-N-Out on our way back from the race, and every time we go to In-N-Out, I get him a puppy patty. And I was just so upset with his performance that I didn't get him a puppy patty at all. And he was looking at me like,
where is it?
Yeah, like he was looking at me so upset, and I just
He saw the logo and he didn't see the patty.
Yeah, he was pathetic. You know?
What's a puppy patty?
It's just an unsalted beef patty. And
It's like a smaller size, or they just take it
they
the regular
just put it in a wrapper, and your
okay.
dog chows down. And he knew like, I'm gonna get a puppy patty. Like I don't think he knows, but like
No, I think like Lance said, he probably sees the logo and
he
he
was salivating.
associates already,
but
you know.
He came in second to last because he's not fixed, so he just tried to jump on some ass. And
He spent too much time trying to fuck, huh?
Yeah, and it sucks because my whole family was there. Like I was gonna get shirts made. Like it was there's kids from the kids class here. Like there was
and he's out there humping somebody on the racetrack.
There was like 40 people there to support Roger. And
Did
he
your
just-
dad throw a beer at him?
No, my dad was there. My dad, you know what's funny is my dad, like I told you, my dad was there, and after, and he just looks at Roger. He goes, "You're pathetic," you know. And then my cousin my nephew who's starting to wrestle. He wrestled that morning. So it was a long day. We did wrestling. My cousin went to a wrestling clinic, and then Roger competed at night, and Dylan got his ass kicked during wrestling, and then Roger obviously got his ass kicked in the race. And my
Bunch
dad,
of failures.
yeah, my dad just looked at both of them and he goes, "I don't know which one I'm more disappointed in." Losers.
When your nickname is the thick weenie,
Yeah.
there's,
The
a lot
thick
of, there's a
weenie.
lot of pressure there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
pressure to perform when you're the thick weenie. Right?
2 C's.
All right, guys. Well, I just want to say thanks again for having us here, Noah. It's always cool to go to a gym and do that. I've done a couple episodes at a gym, and it's always a better environment for when you're talking about all of MMA to have all this around you.
Yeah.
There's a different
Yeah.
energy in the room.
Yeah.
You feel what's left
Yeah,
over
shout
on
out
the
to all,
mats.
all these medals, all these pictures, all these
And
certificates.
it doesn't
Amazing.
smell that bad in here today.
No, we're good. It's good
That's
actually.
me.
Shout out
That's
Susie.
me.
That's all fucking Kyle's armpits. So
It is. It really is.
Anytime.
Thanks for having us here. You can check out the gym's MMA the gym's Instagram at Tillis TILLIS_BJJ, or if you are interested in getting more into contact, you can go to tillisbjj.com TILLIS. If you want to check out Sexy Ass George on Instagram, which I bet you do by now if you haven't already.
I bet the curiosity is killing people. Like, fuck, this guy's
I
hot.
know there's people rubbing themselves right
Yeah.
now in anticipation.
Yeah.
I can feel that over the
The
pant
private
rub
account.
where like you don't want to
Where it
boner,
starts
but
to leak,
you want to
though,
give it some
like-
attention, you know?
If you guys want to subscribe to George's OnlyFans,
Only-
Yeah, he's a
OnlyFans.
feet guy, so
He's a
he's
foot
actually
guy.
he's actually in flip flops right now. So he's
Think there's a market for that?
Cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
you
There
know,
really is.
Look at him all confused, all shy. What?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a market for this place? I've been making this
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah, he said there was a,
$1,000 a month.
a market for the girl feet, but there's an even more niche market for the guy feet.
His wife had a problem until she saw the check, and she's like, "Do your thing, baby boo," and that's what happened. So if you want to check him out on Instagram, it's at JMA. His last name is Magallon, but I know some people don't know how to spell that. JMAGALLON 87_. That's for George Magallon, sexy ass. And yeah, so thank you guys for coming on. I had a fucking great time, and I'm sure in some way we'll all get back on this on different episodes, and maybe we'll do one again. If you guys ever want, we could probably do one. And it's harder for you, Noah, but we can always do like a fucking UFC show one day. Maybe like watch it live or something. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. Super cool.
Sounds good.
So thanks for coming on. I appreciate you guys, and remember to go fuck yourselves.